Hey, what's going on everybody? So today we are going to be building a group video calling application with a Python Django backend while using the Agora Video SDK. Now, this video is sort of an extension to my last video where I built a group video calling application in 15 minutes. But in this one, I wanted to go above and beyond and actually create something that's a little bit more advanced and production level ready, along with a real backend. So we are still going to be building this out from scratch. So if you haven't seen that last video, don't worry about it. We're going to do everything by hand. But if you want to just see some quick integration and how to set this up really fast, I would highly recommend checking that video out because it will give you a good overview of how all of this works. So in the last video, we had some limitations like only having one room and needing to manually refresh a token every 24 hours. And this was because we were generating a temporary token from Agora and then manually having to actually update this. So in this one, we're not going to have to refresh that token manually. And we're also going to have multiple rooms so users can create their own rooms and invite different members to actually join these specific rooms. One thing to note, Agora does provide us with 10,000 free usage minutes each month, so you don't need a card on file to get started. You can get started for free and start testing this out. Okay, so before we get started, I want to show you a quick demo of the final product so you can see what we're about to build here today. So when you first load up the website, this is the first page you're going to see, and this is sort of like a lobby where you can just specify a room that you want to join, add in your information, and then go ahead and join that specific room. Now, if you go to this lobby and you enter a room for the first time that doesn't actually exist, what's going to happen here is this room is going to get created and you're going to be the first user in this room until somebody else joins. Now, if you want to share this room and have other members join or join another specific room, all you need is that room name, and then you're going to be added to that room if it already exists. So let's go ahead and test this out here. And I'm going to go ahead and create a room called New Year because it's January 7th right now. So let's go ahead and add in my name, and I'm going to join this specific room. So right away, it's going to load up the video stream right here, and I can see the room name at the top. So if you happen to be in a room and you forget the name or maybe just the spelling, you can always look up here, get that room name, send this to a friend, and then they can join this room by adding this in. So down here, we have our controls here, so we can always leave a room and come back. We can also turn our camera off and on, and we can also mute and unmute our mic. Now at the top left right here, you're going to see my name right here. So it's always going to display that name for yourself and also for all other users. So when someone else joins, you're going to see their name and they're going to see yours. So that way you can always see who's in that room with you. So what I want to do here is actually test this out by bringing in another user. So I'm going to open up another tab here, and I'm going to have to do this in incognito mode because I am using sessions to store this user's information. So I'm going to open it up in incognito mode so we're not having any conflicts here. And I'm just going to go ahead and open up this website. So let me just bring this down here. And this is another tab here. So if I want to join this specific room, let's go ahead and add in the room name. So we'll do New Year. And I want to make sure the spelling is correct because if I misspell it, I'm either going to join another room or create my own room. So we'll go down here and we'll just add in Eric for the username. And let's just go ahead and join this room. So we'll bring this over here and we'll just click Join Room. So what's going to happen here is going to take a second. And we're going to see Eric join our stream here. And actually, it's going to ask for the camera and microphone. So I have to allow access. So we'll give it a second. And I'm going to mute it so there's no feedback loop here. And there we go. So Eric was added to my stream without having to refresh this manually or anything like that. And now I can see another user in this stream with the name Eric. So Eric can see my name and I can see Eric's name. And then if I pull up Eric's tab, here we go. We can see both users here. Now, if Eric happens to turn off his camera here, so let's go ahead and try to minimize this. I'm super zoomed in, so it might be a little bit harder to do. But let's go ahead and actually turn off the camera. So when I turn the camera off, we're still going to see Eric's video frame, but now it's going to be grayed out until Eric turns the camera back on, rejoins, and there we go. So we have full control. If Eric leaves the room, it's going to go ahead and remove Eric's video stream, and now I'm in this room alone. So we'll close out that tab, and here we go. Now, this application is built to handle a lot of users here. So you can actually handle quite a bit of users with Agora. In this case, the way I designed the CSS, it's really going to start breaking after about 10 users. And I'm going to leave that up to you and how you want to style that, whether you want to have multiple users' faces on screen or maybe only display 10 users and have the rest just watch the stream. So I'm going to leave that up to you and how you style your CSS. But for now, I'm just going to maximize this out at about 10 users. One thing I did want to mention is that I will be releasing another video building virtually the same application using WebRTC WebSockets, and Django channels. And the reason why I wanted to do this is because I want to show you the difference between building all of this out from scratch and using a paid service like Agora. Now, rather than telling you my opinion and trying to convince you one way or the other, I just want to make a video and have you see the differences between the two. And one thing that you're going to notice is that building all of this out from scratch is going to take a lot longer, and you are going to have to learn how to scale out the application versus using a paid service like Agora, which is going to be much quicker because all we're doing is using the SDK and letting Agora take care of everything else. So you're going to notice that the WebRTC video will be a lot longer than this one. So I'm going to come out with that video soon, so keep an eye out for it, and let's go ahead and get started. So just like I do with all my projects, I am going to have the link in the video description, so go ahead and check this out. If you want to download the source code and reference it, you can find it there. And also, if you want to download this project and get it set up and test it before you get started, go ahead and follow the instructions in the README file. So it's going to show you how to clone it, how to install all the requirements. And one thing I wanted to mention is that to make this project work, you are going to need to create an account on Agora, get your app ID and app certificate, and replace this in the views.py file. So you're going to need to do it there. And also in the stream.js file, you're going to see this app ID right here. Once you replace that, then it'll work. Other than that, if you don't set that up, it's not going to work. You're going to see errors, and make sure you get that taken care of. Now, also, we are going to have a file here called template or a folder, and this is going to be just the CSS and HTML to the project. So if you want to reference this and not build it out from scratch, you can always take a look here and actually just get the template and start installing it. But don't worry, I'm going to show you how to do all of this in the video. So go ahead and clone the project and get that set up locally. Okay, so let's go ahead and minimize this. And the first thing I want to do is set up my Django project. So I'm on a Windows machine. I'm going to open up my terminal here, and I'm going to cd into the folder where I want my project. In my case, it's going to be on my desktop. Now, you want to make sure you have Python installed because we do need to run the pip command and actually install some modules. And the first thing I want to do is actually set up a virtual environment. Now, you don't have to do this. It's always smart to set up a virtual environment, but if you get stuck on this step, don't worry. So I'm just going to run a pip install for virtual env. This is what I'll do to set it up. There's other modules to actually create a virtual environment, but we'll just do virtual env. So again, make sure you have Python installed, install virtual env. And once we have this installed, we're going to create a virtual environment. So we're going to do virtual env. And I'm going to call my environment env like that. And what this is going to do is set up a virtual environment. It's going to be a folder on my desktop right now because I'm CD'd into the desktop. And I'll just go ahead and activate this virtual environment. So we'll do env / scripts and activate. This is going to be a little bit different on Mac. So go ahead and look that up and see how you actually have to do this. And I know my virtual environment's active by seeing env right there. So I want to install Django, so we'll do pip install Django, and this will download the latest version of Django. At this point, it's Django 4.0, I believe. So that's going to take a second. It'll get it installed. We'll let this run through, and I might have to zoom out a little bit. And if anything, I'll just pause this right now and then cut to it. So I guess it's done pretty quick. I didn't have to do that. So let's go ahead and continue here. So now that I have Django installed, let's go ahead and create our first Django project. And this is going to set up our Django boilerplate files. So we'll do Django-admin and then start project. So the start project command is going to get our project set up and give us our core files. I need to specify a project name, and I'll just call mine my chat. So there we go. At this point, I'm just going to go ahead and close out my terminal here, and I need to find these folders. I have two screens open, and it keeps adding them to my other screen. So here we see my chat. That's the file we just created, and the virtual environment. Now, you can do whatever you want with this virtual environment and how you store it. In my case, I'm just going to go ahead and add that directly into my Django project. Now, I'm going to go ahead and open up VS Code, and you can use whatever text editor you want, but I'm going to go ahead and open this up, and if you want to use Sublime or anything like that, you're just going to have to run things from your command prompt or whatever editor, and how you have that set up. Just follow those, I guess, instructions. So we're going to go ahead and open up VS Code, open up our folder, and in this case, I'm going to my desktop, and I'm just going to find my chat here. So this is the folder we just created by running Django-admin start project. So we're going to select that, and here we go. So here are my starter files. I have my manage.py file, my virtual environment, which we're not going to touch, and my settings and everything else that I have set up in my project. So I'm going to start running commands from my terminal here in VS Code. My virtual environment is active. So let's go ahead and start setting this up. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually create my app here. So we'll just do Python manage Django.py start app. And I'm gonna assume you have a basic understanding of Django before getting in this project. So I'll go through this a little bit quicker. If you don't understand certain things, I'd highly recommend going over some of the Django basics. So we'll just create an app called base here. So that's going to go ahead and create another folder. And I want to configure my app to my project. So we'll go back into my chat here. These are my core files here. And in settings.py, I'm just going to close out the terminal for now. Let's go ahead and configure our app here. So there's different ways you can do it. In this case, I'm just going to add in a string right here, and that's going to configure my app to my Django project. Now, inside of base, let's go ahead and set up a few views and URLs here. So we'll create a few views, and before we actually do this, I want to create some templates. And there's a few different ways you can handle templates with Django. In my case, I'm going to handle the templates directly inside of my base app. So for this, we're going to create a folder called templates. And the weird thing about Django, to find this file path, it needs a folder called templates and then a folder called base, or whatever you called your app here. So if you called your app something else, create a folder called templates and then by your app name. Now, inside of this base folder that's inside of templates, let's go ahead and create a file called lobby.html. We'll get this set up right here, and I'll just say something like lobby right here so we know which page it is. And we're going to create another file for our room. So we'll just do room.html. Okay, so we have a lobby and a room, and let's just go ahead and do this again. We'll just do room, and let's render these pages out here. So we'll go into our views, and we're going to need a view to actually trigger this response right now. So we'll just go ahead and call this lobby. And this is going to be a function-based view. We'll throw in the request object right there. And we already have this return method right here imported. So we're just going to do render. Inside of render, we need request. And then we're going into the base folder that's inside of templates right here. And we're just going to do /lobby.html. Okay, so that's going to render the lobby page. I'm going to copy and paste this, and we'll do the same for the view. So we'll just do, or for the room. So we'll do room, and that's going to render room.html. Okay, so now what we need to do is create a URLs file for this app. So we'll do new folder, and we're going to create a urls.py file. And we need a file to handle all the routing for these views. So let's minimize or close out settings. We'll close out these two templates, and now we have views and URLs open. So we're going to have to import the path method. So we'll do from Django.url. What did I click here? So from Django.urls, import path. And then we need to create a URL, so URLs pattern, or URL patterns. Here we go. I haven't done this in a while. So URL patterns, this is going to be a list right here. And we also need to import our views. So we'll just do from.import views. Okay, so we have our views imported, and we have the path function. And the path function at a minimum needs a URL route. So we're going to leave the first one as an empty string. This will be our lobby. So it's going to be the home page. And then we need to specify the view that we want to trigger here. So in this case, we're going to trigger the lobby view. And I'm not going to worry about naming this specific URL path. So let's go ahead and copy this again. And we need a path for our room. So in this case, this is going to be room, and then close that with a /, and we're going to trigger the room method. Okay, so we have the URL patterns that tie into these views right here. So we'll save both of these, and let's go ahead and go to our root URLs file here, and we want to connect this right here. So this is our core urls.py file. We'll get rid of all those comments right here. And in this case, we're going to import the include method. So we're going to import that. We're going to use the path method that's already imported. We're going to set this to an empty string. So everything that starts with an empty string, it's going to go ahead and use the include method right here. And it's going to go into my base folder here. So into that app, and it's going to let that URLs file actually handle the URL routing. So we're going to go into this file right here. It's going to jump in here, and then this file right here will handle all the routing. So let's make sure that's set up. I'm going to open up my terminal, and let's run our server. So we'll just do Python manage.py run server. And let's test this out here. So don't worry about these errors. That's not going to be a problem at this point. And at this point, I actually have my port 8000 saved inside of my bookmark tabs right here. So go ahead and just add that into your browser if you haven't had that, or if you don't have that yet. And here we go. So we see our lobby rendered. And if we do room, that should render our room. So everything looks good so far. Now, what I want to do here is create a main template so I'm able to actually create global stylings and then just inherit all these other templates from that main template. So again, this is a Django concept. I'd highly recommend studying up on this. If you don't understand this is a pretty basic level idea here. So what we're going to do is create a new template called main, and then all these other templates are going to extend it or inherit from it. So we have main.html, and in most text editors, you can just start writing HTML like that, and it's going to give you some boilerplate here. If not, go ahead and just write this out. Really, all you need is these links right here, and make sure you have your page title here. So I guess in theory, you don't need the page title, so I'll just call it my chat. And at this point, I'm just going to comment out the script tag and the CSS link. So we're not going to use that at this point. Now, using our tags here, what I'm going to do is create 2 block tags. Again, I won't explain this, but because this is more of a basic concept, I'm going to create some block tags here. So we'll call it block content. And we're going to go ahead and close this block tag here. So this is going to wrap all the child templates. So we'll just do end block content. Okay, so we're going to have our main template, and everything inside of here is going to be the child templates right here. So to actually extend this template, let's go ahead and add in an h1 tag, and we'll just say main template. So I want something that's going to show that we actually extended this template. So we'll go back into our lobby, or let's go back into the room, and now we want to extend that template. Again, this is just going to save us time later down the road. So we'll just go ahead and do extends, and then we'll go into base/main.html. So this is the template that we want to extend. So let's go ahead and do block content. So basically we're following this naming right here, and we're showing where all that child content's going to go. And we'll just go ahead and do end block content. Okay, so let's test this out. So we'll go into our room. If I refresh this, now we see the main template, but if I go back into the lobby, we're not going to see that main template. So we need to do the same for the other templates. So we'll go into lobby.html, and let's just copy this right here. So we'll just copy that and bring that into lobby. Okay, so I'll copy that right there, add in end block, and that should take care of it. So let's give this a shot. So now if I refresh lobby, we see main template. And if I go to the room, we're going to see that main template also there. So there we go. This template is inside of every room. So let's actually clean this up real quick. We'll go ahead and get rid of this section right here, and we don't need that anymore. So we have our template set up, and now what I want to do is actually connect our static files here, because we are going to be using some icons. We're going to load those in as images, and we also want to connect our CSS files. So let's go ahead and take care of that part here. So we'll close a few of these out. Let's just save this. Just want to keep my tabs at a minimum right now. And let's go ahead and create a static file folder. So we'll create a new folder. We'll call it static. And this is going to contain any images, JavaScript, and CSS, and any other assets that we want to add. So inside of our static folder here, let's go ahead and create a new folder. And we're going to call this one styles. So this will contain all our CSS files. And inside of styles, we're going to contain a main.css file. So this will be our CSS. Now inside of our static folder again, we're going to create another folder called JS, and this will handle all of our JavaScript files here. So we'll go ahead and create a new file, and I'm going to call this streams.js. So inside of our streams, I want to make sure to have our JavaScript code separate for that specific page. So we have a streams.js file, we have a main.css file, and we also want our images. So we're going to actually install images. That's going to be in that GitHub repo. So we'll do that in a second. But the first thing I want to do is actually create some CSS. So let's go ahead and use our body tag, and let's just add something that's obvious just to make sure that our static files are connected. So we'll use this aquamarine color here. Couldn't say that. So that way we'll see it if it's attached. So right now our project does not know about these static files. So to actually connect these, we'll go back into our main project. We'll go into settings.py, and we'll go down here near static URL here, and we're going to use static files underscore dirs. So static file directories, and we're going to create a list here, and we're going to go ahead and actually set a list of static files that we're going to allow here. So in this case, we have a file path called base here. let's see, we have base directory. So base directory is going to point us back to this base directory here, so the root directory of our project. So we're just going to go ahead and set a path to base dir, and then /, and we're going to say, go ahead and look into the static folder here. So now it's actually going to look into the static folder anytime we're using static files, and it's going to find all of our static files in here. So we connected our static files, and now we want to use this. So let's go ahead and go into our main.html, and let's actually uncomment the CSS here. And I'll just comment out the script tag right now. So we'll comment that out, and what I want to do here is actually load in my static file. So we have this tag called load static. So we'll do load static like that. So we first have to do that, and then right here for the CSS file, what I'm going to do is actually remove everything to the quotes here, and we'll use double quotes, and we're just going to use this tag here. So this tag right now is going to go ahead and point to the static folder. Let me move this to the right. And then inside with single quotes, so if you use single quotes on the outside, you're going to have to use double quotes here. And if you use double quotes, use single quotes right here. So we're pointing to the static file folder. We're setting the path here. And we're going into styles because we called this folder styles right here. So we're going into styles. And we're going to point this to main.css. So we're going into static styles main.css. Okay, so that's the file path to our static files. Now let's open up our website, and you might have to do Control-Shift-R when you refresh it. So go ahead and refresh your page. And here you go. So the static files are now connected, and because we put that into main.html, it's going to appear on every page. So really quickly, let's also connect our images here. So inside of your GitHub repo here, the one that's linked up, I do have some pictures. If you want to use mine, go ahead and use them. If not, totally fine if you don't use these. You can actually go to the template folder and go ahead and go into images, and let's take this chat icon. So that will be like the logo to our website. So let's go ahead and grab this. We'll just do download. So this is the image right here. So we'll just do save as, and we'll go into my desktop. We'll go to my chat, and we're just going to add this into static images, and we'll save that in here. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and do that for the rest of the images too, because we do have leave, microphone, and video. So we might as well take care of that right here. So these ones are SVG files. They're still in the static folder because I already set that. I don't have to do that again. Let's go into microphone. I guess if you had this downloaded, you would just be able to drag these over, but because I already started this way, we'll just continue. So we'll go into video, and let's just grab this one. So we have our video icon, and there we go. So if I go back to my project now, we're going to see these images inside right here. So they're all inside of my static and then images folder. So let's see how we can connect to these. So we don't have to configure any more static files here. So what I'm going to do is actually go into lobby, because this is where I'm going to keep that logo. And let's just go ahead and load in static. So we also have to load in the static tag in this page, because anywhere we use that tag, we need to load it into the page specifically. So we'll just do load static, and let's go ahead and add in that logo. So we'll add in an image tag here. And for the source here, we'll just go ahead and do source, and we're just going to point this to static again. So we're going back into the static folder, and in this case, we're going into images, and we're just going to go ahead and grab the chat icon. So chat-icon.png. So chat-icon.png. Okay, so let's test this out. Let's give this a shot and see what it looks like. So if I go back to my page and refresh it, so this is in the lobby, so make sure you're back in the lobby page, and here we go. So our images are now officially connected. So what I want to do here now is actually go ahead and style up the pages here. So I want to do a little bit of prep work, make sure our lobby's set. We'll add in some classes, some IDs. We'll clean up the styling, and then we'll just keep styling it as we go. But I want to make sure we at least have the core set up and it actually looks nice. Okay, so let's start with this lobby here. So this image is way too big and it looks pretty bad. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and just wrap a main tag around all of this. We'll go ahead and close this up right here. And I'm going to create a section here for our form containers. So we're just going to go ahead and use the section tag here. So you can also use a div, that'll work just fine. So we're going to go ahead and create a section, and we're going to call this form container. So let's give it an ID of form-container. And if you don't want to deal with the styling, you just want to get to the video part, you can always jump ahead with this. Just want to make sure all of this is prepped here. So at this point, let's take this image right here. We'll copy it and then paste it in right here. And I'm just going to give this an ID of logo. So let's just go ahead and do logo, and we'll get that set up. And we can actually remove this H2 tag here. So we'll get rid of that. And I'm also going to have some kind of welcome message. So we'll just do a div right here. This is going to wrap our welcome message. We'll just say H1. And just like the demo here, we'll just go ahead and, why can't I get that angle bracket? Oh, I was pressing the wrong thing. Let's just do welcome to my chat. And then we'll just camel case, not camel case it, we'll just capitalize M and then C here. So let's just go ahead and add in a paragraph tag. We'll just say a group video calling application. So we'll just do a group video calling application just for you. Okay, so we'll set that up. I think that's what the demo said. So we'll just build it in like that. And let's go ahead and style this logo. So we'll go back into our CSS file and let's just get rid of this for now. And we'll just go ahead and go back to the logo here. And let's see, for the logo, we'll just grab logo. Let's just go ahead and display it as a block so we can add in some formatting because it's an image. We'll want to add that. And let's see, we'll just do the width 100 pixels. And for the margin, we want to center this. So we'll just do margin 0 auto. And then we'll actually style the entire page. So let's go ahead and check this out. We'll refresh that. Okay, so that looks a little bit better. The logo's actually centered here. So let's go ahead and actually style the rest of the page too. So we want to add in some styling to our body. So for the body, what I'm actually going to do here is create a variable. So these are CSS variables. So if you don't know what these are, they're just like JavaScript variables or Python variables. You can actually set a value and then reuse that. So we're going to set the root value. And let's just go ahead and call this variable shadow. So we'll go ahead and set this. And what I'm going to do here is actually just copy and paste a shadow value rather than writing all of this out. So we'll go ahead and just take shadow here and we're going to paste this in here. So I was supposed to add in a colon right here. So shadow, and then go ahead and just write that in like that here. And I was not supposed to add in this. Sorry about this part. So we'll just go ahead and close this off. So a colon and a semicolon, and that's going to be our shadow. Now for the body here, let's just go ahead and do a background color. So we'll do background color, and this is going to be RGBA, and we'll just go ahead and set this up. We'll do 232, and this is just a gray color, 233, and then we'll just do 239 and 1. So 239 and then 1 for the opacity. So we'll get that background color set up. Let's go ahead and check this out. So the background color kind of gives us a slight gray here. And what I want to do is actually style that form container. So this is why I wanted to set this up. I want to make sure it looks decent. So we'll just do form. Let's see. Form dash container. And let's go ahead and style this up. So we're going to set the width to 400 pixels. We'll do 400 px here. And what did I do wrong here? Okay, so I thought I messed something up here. So we'll just use the box shadow. So we'll set a box shadow to that form container. So we'll do box shadow, and this is going to be that variable that we just set. So we're going to use this shadow variable. So we'll just do dash dash shadow. We'll get that set up, and then we'll set a background color. We want to make this white. So we'll do FFF. That's going to give us a white hex. Let's set a padding of about 30 pixels all around. And then we just want to set a border radius. So we'll just do border radius, and this is going to be 5 pixels. So we want to give it some round edges. And then for the position, we just want to make sure this is centered. So we'll just do position fixed. So we'll make sure to center that. And then we're going to set the top value. So this is how you can actually center an item or center a div here. So we'll just do 50%. Actually need to use a percent symbol for the top, and then left is going to be also 50%. And then we want to make sure it's completely centered. So we're going to use transform, and this is going to be translate, and we're going to do negative 50. So it's basically going to pull it in all directions and center our item. And then we'll just do negative 50%. Okay, so let's check this out. Just want to make sure this form container looks pretty good. So there we go. I zoomed out a little bit. It looks a little nicer. And let's see. At this point, I guess I really don't need to do much more with the text. I don't want to spend too much time on this. What I want to do is jump to the actual room here. So let's go back into our base, templates, and room. And I want to create some containers here and actually set up the frames that are going to hold all of our video streams. So we'll go into our room and let's just go ahead and use the main tag. So we're also going to wrap this. We'll go ahead and open and close that right here. And the first thing I want to do is create a section here for the room name. So we'll just go ahead and use the section tag. And this is going to be, we're going to give it an ID of room name wrapper. So this is going to be a wrapper for that section. And then we're just going to use a p tag here. So we're going to do room name. So we'll add that in. And then for the actual name, because this is going to be dynamic added by JavaScript, we're just going to go ahead and add in a span tag. And we're going to leave that blank, but we will give it an ID of room name. So we're going to fill in this section. So that's why we added the span tag in here to replace the actual text in here. Now, the next section is going to be the actual video streams. So we'll just go ahead and do a section tag right here. So we'll do section, and then inside of section, let's go ahead and give it an ID of video streams. So we'll just do video streams. Now, the actual stream objects that we'll be adding in here will be added dynamically, but what I'm going to do is actually create some manually, and then we'll just remove them later and let those be input with JavaScript. But I do want to build them out here, so that way we can just copy and paste them into our JavaScript once we're ready for that. So let's go ahead and pretend a user just joined our stream. The first thing we want to do is give it a class of video containers. So each user will have a container, so video container. And this is going to wrap the actual video stream for them. So we'll have a container, and then what we're going to do here is give it an ID, and this is going to be called user-container. And we're going to give each user an ID here. So for now, I'm just going to go ahead and set one manually to 1. But in theory, each user is going to have a UID that's going to get added in here. And that's how we know which video stream to actually update, minimize, remove, and add back into the stream. So this will be a dynamic value later down the road. So we have a container around each video. So I'll create some space here. And this is going to give you a better idea of how all this is going to work. So let's go ahead and actually create another div here. We'll go ahead and set this up. And this div will be for the actual video player. So this is going to wrap the video tag that's going to get generated automatically too. So we'll just do video-player. Can't spell that right. So video player. So we're going to give it a class, and then the same thing. We're going to need to add in an ID, and we're going to need to know how to actually append a video player to our HTML. So in this case, we're going to find it by the user and then by the user's ID, which in this case is going to be 1. So that's going to be our first user. Now, the next thing I want to do is actually add in a username. So what I'm going to do here is create a div here, and we're just going to go ahead and add in a span tag into this div, and this will display the user's name here. So we'll just go ahead and add in a span tag inside of this div, and we'll just say my name. And later on, this will be replaced by each user's name. Now, for the span tag, let's go ahead and give this a class here, actually. We'll just do class. And we're going to add some styling. So we'll just give this a class of user-name. And then for the actual div here, let's go ahead and give this a class of user-name or username, because that's how I set it up in the demo. So we'll do user-name wrapper. Okay, so let's go ahead and actually get this value here. Let's save it. And let's go back into our CSS and make sure this is styled here. So this is what I wanted to show right away. So if I go to the site, if I go into an actual room, we'll go to a room. It doesn't look that good. We just have some information here, but it doesn't really actually show what our stream should look like. So we'll want to style this and give a better representation of this. So let's go ahead and design our room. So we'll create a comment here. So let's just go ahead and do -- like that, and we'll just do room styling. So we want to know what this section is right here. And let's just go ahead and actually create a container for our video container. So we'll just do video-container, and we'll just style this part up. So inside of our video container, let's go ahead and give it a border. We'll just do border, and this will be 1px solid. So we want to be able to see it. So 1px solid RGB, and let's just go ahead and do 7593. So this is going to be like a shade of purple or blue, and then we'll just do 172. So we'll do border 1px solid, and then we'll set the color, and then we'll just add in a border radius. So we'll set that up, and let's just go ahead and set that to 5 pixels, and then we'll just set a margin so they actually have some distance between them. and we'll just do a margin of 2px. So each video frame should actually have some spacing between them, and we'll set a background color here. So for the background color, we'll just do RGBA. We'll just do RGBA like this, and then we'll do 198, and this is going to be like a shade of gray, and I have these colors already preset. 219, and then for the opacity, we'll just do 1 like that. And we'll also add opacity to this one right here. So let's go ahead and add that in, and let's go ahead and check out what we have here. So we'll go back here, and here we go. So this is a video frame. So I'm also going to set some height and width to this too. So because I'm going to use a flex box around this, and this is what's going to help us inline all of this, let's go ahead and create the wrapper. And this is going to be this container right here. Let's go ahead and actually style the wrapper around it. So this is going to be video-streams. So we'll go ahead and style the video streams. In this case, we're going to do display flex. So it's going to inline those. And then once the width of this is actually too much, we want to make sure to add in flex wrap so it actually stacks on top of each other. So we'll do flex wrap, and we'll set this value to wrap. And then let's go ahead and set a height of 85 viewport height. So we'll do height for that. And then the width here, let's see, let's just set this to 75%. We might adjust this later, but for now we'll leave it like that. And then we'll center this by doing margin 0 auto. Okay, so we set these values. Now to actually set the child elements, let's go ahead and set flex bases. So we're going to set a height and width to these child elements. Okay, so if you don't know Flexbox or CSS grids, just go ahead and follow along. If you follow this code exactly, it should set it up right. I'm not going to go into explaining all the details of the CSS part. It's the least important part of what we're actually trying to accomplish here. So let's just go ahead and set flex grow. So we'll just do grow, GRO, and this is going to be 1. So basically it's just going to be adjustable here. Now for the max height, we're going to set this to 100%. So we always want the height to be 100% unless there are items below it and it needs to adjust. So we also want to set a minimum so our video frames don't get completely crushed. In this case, the minimum height will be 350 pixels. Okay, so let's set that. Let's go ahead and refresh it. And here we go. So this is our first video frame. So let's test this out, and let's actually create a second element here. So we'll go into our room HTML file, or room.html, and let's create another container. Let's pretend like another user joins. So this user is going to have the ID of 2. We'll set these values right here. We'll save it, and let's see how this adjusts. So it should inline these values. Let me try to zoom out. Okay, so it's because I'm super zoomed in. So this is what it actually should look like. I hope it's actually a decent size for your screen. But here we go. Now we actually see the 2 values. And if I add in a third value, let's go ahead and copy this video container, save it, and let's go ahead and refresh that. And here we go. So they stack on top of each other. And if we add 4, it's just going to continue that way. So let's just go ahead and set that up. So let's refresh it. And here we go. This is going to represent like a good video stream here. So again, if the CSS is broken at any point, we'll go ahead and fix it. And I'm going to jump back into zooming in here. And let's actually just go ahead and remove all of these except for the first one right here. So we'll set that up and we'll add the controls later. So at this point, all of our styling is set up. And what I want to do here is actually jump back into actually displaying our video stream. So what we're going to have to do is create an account on agora.io. We're going to create an account on Agora. We need to create an app that we want to use. And we're going to need to grab an app ID and an app certificate and actually start using the values from that. So we're going to connect our Django project to our Agora SDK and output this footage right here inside of room.html. Okay, so let's go ahead and open up our browser here and let's go to agora.io. So if you don't already have an account, go ahead and create an account. Remember, you don't need a credit card on file. You have 10,000 free use minutes each month, so it should be plenty for this tutorial. So go ahead and register, and I already have an account, so I'm going to log in. So this is the dashboard that you're going to see. Mine might look a little bit different because I'm extremely zoomed in on my computer. But inside of this Agora console here, you're going to see this section right here for projects here. So I was testing this earlier. We can see a few projects. Go ahead and go to this tab right here and go ahead and create a new project. So we have to create an app, and then we have to get those apps credentials to actually use it. So we'll go to create right here, and let's just call this My Chat Live. So we'll go ahead and give it a name. In this case, I'm just going to take off the caps here. We'll do that again. We'll do my chat live, or we'll just do video. So in this case, this is for the tutorial. And for the use case, we're just going to select, let's see, we're going to do social and we'll do chat room. So down here, make sure you select this method right here, secured mode app ID plus token. This is what we're going to use right now. So let's go ahead and submit that. And this is going to create an app for us. Now, if you see this grayed out, it's disabled at this point. This is going to take a minute. It might take up to 2 minutes. So go ahead and wait and try to refresh it. If it still doesn't work after that, go ahead and go to this action section. So I'll scroll over to that, go to action, and at some point you might just have to enable the primary certificate here. So if you still don't have it, go into this section right here and go ahead and enable that. And that should actually activate your account and make sure everything's set up here, or make sure that your app is actually able to use or be used. So we'll give it a minute. I'll pause it and then I'll refresh it. Once this is active, we'll jump back in. Okay, so I waited the 2 minutes and now it looks active. It's not gray anymore. And now we are ready to use this app here. So what we need to do is actually go ahead and generate a temporary token. So let's go ahead and actually go to this key icon right here and let's go ahead and get this token. Here we see our app ID. So let's go ahead and copy this. So the first thing we're going to do is go back into our stream.js file, or anywhere that you have your JavaScript that's actually going to be connected to that page. So in this case, we'll go to JS here. And let's go ahead and create a variable here, and we're going to call this app ID. So we'll do app underscore ID, and then add this as a string here. So I'm going to paste in that app ID. So go ahead and add that. And the next thing we're going to need is the channel name. So we'll do const, and then we'll just do channel. So this will be the actual channel. That'll be a string here in a second. And then we'll just do const here. And let's go ahead and actually get the token. So this one will be a token. So we need the token, app ID, and channel for now. And that's also going to be a string. So looks like I set that one up wrong. That looked funny to me. Okay, so down here, let's go ahead and generate a channel name. And this is going to be called main. So whatever you set this, the second you set the channel name, you can now generate a temporary token. So what's going to happen here is we're going to use our app certificate, our app ID, and the channel name to generate a token. And this is what we use for authentication. And in that video where I did this all in 15 minutes, we were only able to use one channel name. And at this point, we had to set it here and use this token. So we're going to start by using this method here. And then later on, I'll show you how to do this dynamically. So we'll do this the manual way, and then we'll fix it. So let's generate that token, and let's just copy this token. So we'll go ahead and take that, paste that in right here. Make sure there's no empty space here. The token is now set. And whatever you called the channel name here, so in this case, it's main. So whatever you called it, go ahead and set that right here. Okay, so we have this set up, and let's go ahead and save this. And what I want to do is make sure that this JavaScript file is actually connected to our room.html file. So we'll go back into our templates. Let's go to room, and we're going to need to load in that JavaScript file here. So let's load in static, because we're going to use our static files. We'll do load static. And down here, let's go ahead and bring that in. So we'll just go ahead and bring in the script tag here. And this is going to be type text / JavaScript. Okay, so we'll set that up. And let's go ahead and actually set the value here. So we'll close that tag. I don't know why it's not auto fixing it for me. So we'll just do script. Okay, so let's see. Screwed up a few things here, and that looks good now. Okay, so for the source itself, let's go ahead and actually add this in. So we're going to use that static tag. So we'll just do static, and we're just going to go ahead and point to JS, and we're doing streams.js. And that should connect it here. So let's go ahead and just console something out, make sure this is working. So let's just go one step below this, or one line below, and we'll just do console.log, and we'll just do streams connected. So streams or stream.js connected. Okay, let's make sure that's working. Let's save room.html here. So we point to that JavaScript file. Everything looks like it should work. And we'll go back in here, inspect the console, and we'll just refresh that. Okay, so that file is connected. There's a misspell there, but we're not worried about that. And everything so far looks good. So we connected this. Now, the next thing we need to do is actually download the Agora SDK. Now, there's a few ways to do this. You could just grab the CDN link. The only issue with this is that if Agora updates and you happen to have an older version, you're going to run into some errors here. So let's go ahead and actually bring the Agora SDK in here. So we'll go back to the website. Let's go to agora.io, and we'll just go back to our dashboard. Let's go ahead and clear that. And let's go to downloads here. So in downloads, we want to go ahead and make sure we have web selected, and we're getting the video SDK. So here's 4.81. Go ahead and click on that, and that's going to download it. So let's go ahead and actually move this out here. We're going to remove the file from that zip folder. So give me a second. Let me just minimize this, bring this out here, open up the zip file, and in the zip file, we're going to have this folder here, and we just want to get this file right here. So Agora RTC _N -4.81 or whatever the version is that you're using. Now, what I'm also going to do is open up my project here, and I'm going to bring this into the static folder here. So we're just going to go ahead and create a new folder. I'm going to call this one assets here, and we'll just bring in this file in here. So out of that zip folder, go ahead and bring that into the assets folder. So make sure you got the right one. That's all we're doing. And now we have the SDK. So we need to bring this in here. So if I go back into my static files, if I go into assets, we're just going to go ahead and copy this name right here. And let's go down to room.html, and we want to bring this above this JavaScript file. So we'll go ahead and just do script. Hopefully I don't have the same issues as I did before. Let's just finish closing this. We'll just do script like that. I don't know why it keeps doing that for me. And we'll just go ahead and bring in the source here, and we'll paste that in. Looks like I didn't copy that fully. So we'll go back to static, and I'll just do Control-C, copy the name, paste that in, and then just add in the .js extension, and we'll save that. Now let's also go ahead and set the type here. So we'll just bring that up here, and now we should be good to go. So we're going to test this out here and make sure that the CDN was correctly set up here. Oh, I actually forgot. This is supposed to be pointing to the static files here. So let's copy this. We'll paste that. So double quote and then single quote right there. Forgot to do this the Django way. So let's copy the double quote all the way to the closing single quote, and we'll bring that in right there. Okay, now that should point to it. So inside of stream.js, the first thing we're going to do is create a client object from Agora. So now that we have Agora added in here, we can actually start using methods from that SDK. Really quick, before we get started here, I also wanted to mention where to find the Agora documentation. So from your Agora dashboard, go ahead and select API reference here, and you're going to find all the documentation in this page here. So we are currently using the web SDK, so go ahead and select that as a platform. And at this point, we are using the video call API here. So click on this right here. Anything that I use inside of this code here, I would highly recommend looking at the documentation. If you have any questions about any of the functions, anything that we use, reference this, and this will give you all the information that you need here. So this will be linked up in the video description. I would highly recommend studying this as you go along through the video. So let's go ahead and create a variable here, and this is going to be our client object here. So we're going to do Agora RTC.create client. And the reason why we have access to this now is because of this SDK that we downloaded. So we have access to all the methods here. And the client object is just an interface for providing the local client with basic functions for voice and video calls, such as joining a stream and publishing our tracks or subscribing to other users' tracks. Now the create client method is going to take in two required parameters. The first one is going to be mode here, and this can either be RTC or live. We're going to leave this as RTC. And this just specifies the optimization algorithm that's going to be used. And the other one is going to be codec. And this is simply the encoding method that our browser is going to use. So we'll specify codec, and we're just going to do VP8 here. Now, the next thing we want to do is go ahead and create a place to store our local audio and video tracks, and also a place to store the audio and video tracks for remote users that join this specific stream. So we'll create a variable called local tracks here. And this is simply going to be an array here. So when we first go to this website, our browser will ask us for permission to actually get our audio and video tracks. Once we get those, we're going to store them in here, and that's how we can actually play these tracks. Now, when remote users join, we also want a value to store all of these. So we'll just go ahead and call this remote users. And this is going to be an object here. So we just want to go ahead and store them by their key value pairs here. So we'll store them in here. This is for all the remote users and our local client. So now what we need is a way to start this process up here. So we need a function to fire off, get the user's audio and video tracks, and display this to the screen, and also join a channel so all other users can see this information. So let's go ahead and create a function that fires all of this off. So we'll call this join and display local stream. And we're just going to go ahead and make sure it's an async function. So the way that I'm doing things, you want to make sure it's an async function because we are going to use async await. We'll make this an arrow function here. And the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and call the client.join method. So we'll do client.join. So we're accessing this client object right here that we set. And the join method just takes our information here. So it's going to take this token, this channel, and app ID, and it's actually going to join a specific channel here. So let's go ahead and pass in the app ID. The next thing I want to do is pass in a channel here. So we'll throw this in right here. And we also want to throw in the token. Now, we also need to pass in a UID here. So let's go ahead and set this to null for now. So if you don't pass in a UID, this will just go ahead and return a UID value. So if we don't set one, let's go ahead and set this to an empty value. So we'll just do UID, and we'll just go ahead and do UID equals, and we'll get that return value. So we'll take care of this, and we'll actually use a real UID later, but for now, we'll just take whatever this gives us. So we'll do UID like that. We're going to join a channel with these credentials. Remember, if we don't pass in a UID into this value, it'll just generate one for us. So we don't need to worry about that. So once we join a channel, the next thing we want to do is get the user's audio and video tracks here. So we're going to take this local tracks value that we set, and we're just going to set this to the return value of the next method. So we're going to use await, and we're going to do Agora RTC.create microphone and camera tracks. Okay, it's kind of hard for me to spell and talk when I'm doing that. So create microphone and camera tracks. So this method will go ahead and get the user's audio and video tracks. So when you see that prompt the first time you join this website, this is the method that's going to do it. So it's going to take those audio and video tracks, and it's going to store them as an array in here. So the index of 0, the first item in this array, will be the audio track, and the next one is going to be the camera track. So once we have this set up, we want to create the video player. So let's go ahead and set this next value. So we'll call this player right here, and we're going to use template literals. So these are backticks, not quotes right here. And earlier on, we created our video player right here inside of room.html. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and grab this value right here, copy that, and let's go ahead and just remove it. And I mentioned earlier that we would add in these values dynamically. So we don't want to actually build in that video player here. We want to do that through JavaScript anytime a user joins. So we took that value, and we're going to paste this inside of these template literals. And we want to do this because we're going to add in some more dynamic values here. So let's go ahead and fix this spacing here. And earlier on, I added in these hard-coded values. So we just have a 1 right here for the user ID. So user container -1, and I told you earlier that these need to be dynamic. Well, what's going to happen here is we're going to take this user ID, whether we set it or it gets generated automatically, and we're going to use this UID to actually change this value. And we need to actually be able to identify which container or video player is associated with each user. So here's the video player. We're just going to go ahead and adjust this right here. So every user will have their own video player, and the one value that's going to be unique is going to be their container by the UID and by the user's actual UID value here. So once we create this player, what we want to do is just go ahead and append it to the DOM here. So we want to find this element, video streams. We want to take this value, and we just want to add this to our DOM. So we're going to do document.getElementById. We'll paste in video streams, and then we're just going to do insert adjacent HTML. And we want to make sure that our video player gets added to the beginning of that wrapper. So let's go ahead and add in before end. And need to make sure to set that up properly. So before end, like that. And then we're just going to throw in that player. So this player right here that we created will just be added to video streams, and then it'll get thrown in here. And this is how we can actually see the user's video. Now let's go ahead and go back here. And the next thing we want to do is actually play that specific video. So we created the element. We have the audio and video tracks. And what we want to do is go ahead and take that video track. So remember, in index 0 of this value, that's going to be our audio track, and then index 1 is going to be the video track. So we're going to do index 1, and then we're going to call the play method. So what the play method is going to do is basically just create a video tag. So it's like a HTML element, and it's actually going to start playing our video inside of that tag. But we need to know where to put that HTML tag. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to go ahead and grab this value right here. So this is why it needs to be unique. So this play method is simply looking for an ID inside of our DOM here with a specific value. So we're just going to use our backticks again, and we're going to say, go ahead and take that video tag right there, or that element, and append it to a value with this ID. And in this case, it's going to find that user and go ahead and add it. So this will actually play it. Now, under here, what we want to do is actually, or underneath this section, we actually want to publish our audio and video tracks to the channel. So right now, we've joined the channel. We have our audio and video tracks stored. We added this to our own, to our own browser here, so we'll see it. But then we want other people to also see this too. So we're going to call await, and we'll do client.publish. And this is just going to publish our audio and video tracks. So we're going to create an array here, and we'll just do local tracks. So we're accessing this value again. And the first thing we want to publish is the audio track. And the next thing we want to publish is our video track. So this is how other users can actually get these values. So anybody in that channel will now have access to these tracks because we officially published them. Now what we want to do is go ahead and call this method. So when the user first goes to this page, we want to just go ahead and call this function. And I guess we'll just see if everything was done correctly. If we have any errors, we'll fix those. So we'll save them. So we'll recap this. We join the channel. We get our audio and video tracks, create a player, append that player to video streams, go ahead and play that method, and then publish the track. So let's go back here and let's see. We'll bring this up and let's give this a shot. So I'm just going to go ahead and do Control-Shift-R. We're going to refresh it. And let's see, reference Agora RTC is not defined. So it looks like maybe I didn't add that in correctly. So let's go ahead and fix that up. Okay, so I actually found two issues with my code. So the first one is the fact that the file path to the Agora SDK is actually not correct here. So if I go back to room.html, I can see that I'm pointing to static and then I point to that SDK. But if I go back to static here, I can see that this is inside of a folder called assets here. So all I have to do is go ahead and fix that. We'll take care of it, and that issue should go away now. Now, the other issue is the fact that my video player has no styling. So it has no height or width. So even though the play method is going to take that HTML video player and add it into it, we don't have a height and width, so you actually won't see it. So let's go back to our CSS file, and let's just go ahead and fix that. So we'll just do video-player. And we'll just go ahead and add in a height of 100%. We'll let the parent element take care of the actual sizing. So we just wanted to fill out all those contents there. So we'll just do width 100%, and that should be good. So if I go ahead and refresh this, we should see my face here now. So there we go, it's all working. We have successfully displayed our local feed to the browser here. So at this point, there's no styling here. I still want to fix up a lot of stuff here. And this video player is only displaying for me, so no other user can actually see this. So we want to start working with remote users so we can subscribe to each other and actually see each other's video feeds. Now, the other thing that I want to fix here is go ahead and actually create a button here. So when you go to the home page, we're just going to have some kind of join button for now before we add in the username and room name, and we're going to join this specific stream. So we'll make this real quick just so it feels a little bit nicer. So we'll go into lobby.html. So let's see, lobby right here. And all I'm going to do is add in a form here, and then we'll continue filling this form out later. So we'll just do form, and we'll just give this form an ID of form here. And let's just go ahead and add in a button. So we'll just go ahead and create a wrapper, and let's see, I actually wanted to start wrapping these elements right away. So I'm just going to call this form field because we are going to add styling to it later. So we'll just do form-field, and we might as well set that up right away. So in this form, we're going to add in an input button. Let's go ahead and fill this out. The type will be submit, and the value will be join stream. Again, we won't add in the actual input fields yet. So we'll just go ahead and add in some JavaScript below here. So when someone clicks this, we just want to redirect them to the next page. So we're not actually submitting anything just yet. So we'll do script. The type is going to be text/JavaScript. Just getting the prep work done here. And let's go ahead and finish this up here. So the first thing I want to do is go ahead and get the form. So we're going to create a variable and call this form. And that's going to be document. Let's see, document.getElement by ID. I don't know where the heck get animations came from. I haven't used that ever. So we'll get the element by ID. We'll get the form. Then we're just going to go ahead and add in an event handler. So for this, we're just going to create an event handler called handle submit. So we'll do handle submit. And we are going to add to this function later. So right now it seems kind of like an overkill to do so much for such simple functionality, but we are going to add a lot more to it. So we'll just start the pre-build here. So we're going to make sure it's an async function. We're we're going to use this arrow function right here. And the first thing I want to do is prevent the default. So when the form gets submitted, I don't want the typical HTML form to actually submit. We want JavaScript to take care of this. So the first thing we're going to do is prevent default. So prevent default, this is going to stop the form's default actions here. We're going to prevent that. And then what I want to do is simply redirect the user to the next page. So we'll do window.open. And let's just go ahead and send the user to room. And in this case, I want to make sure this doesn't open in a new tab. So we'll do _self, and that should be good. So that just means that we're not going to open a new tab. We're actually just going to change the current URL. Now, all I need to do is go ahead and add an event listener to this form. So we'll do form.add event listener, and the event listener will be submit. So whenever that form is submitted, go ahead and trigger handle submit. Okay, so we'll save that. Let's test this out. So I'm going to do Control-Shift-R just to make sure all the files are updated. Here we see a join stream button. Doesn't really do too much here. If I click it, it redirects me back to this page. And there we go. So let's go ahead and continue by starting to add in our remote users. So we'll start taking care of everything there, and then eventually we'll fix this ugly styling. So let's open that up. We'll close out this browser. So we'll just actually go back to the home page, and let's go ahead and start that. Okay, so now I want to talk about how we can add users to a specific stream so we can actually hear and see their audio and video sources in our browser once they join a channel. So for this, I actually have a picture that I used in the last video. So I want to go ahead and give you an overview, and then we'll just start coding this up. So if it doesn't make sense right away, you'll see it in action and things will start coming together. So in this example, we have a room right here with user A, B, and C, and these users can hear and see each other because they've all joined that stream. Now, whenever a new user joins this stream, what's going to happen is they're going to call that join and display local stream method that we just created. And in this method, we call the join method, which first joins a channel. Then we call the client.publish method. And the publish method is going to take the user's audio and video tracks right here. So the audio track and the video track, and it's going to publish it to that specific channel or room, whatever you want to call that. Now, when we call the publish method, we actually have event listeners that listen to this event. So whenever the publish method is called, user A, B, and C will all listen to that event, and we can have a function that responds to this event. So when the user joins, we call publish, then user A, B, and C will all call the user.published method, and we're going to create a function that's going to handle that event. So whenever we call this publish method, we're actually going to take this audio and video source from this user that joined. So we'll have access to that inside of this handle user joined method. And that's when we can take that audio and video source, and then we can create that video player and project it out in our browser. So let's go ahead and see this in action. So we'll go back to streams.js here, and this is where we can actually add in that event handler. So join and display local stream. Here's that join method, and here's that publish method. So this publish method, whenever we trigger this, it's going to fire off an event for all other users. But before they can actually respond to that, we need to go ahead and add in that event listener to handle this. And this is going to be in the beginning of this function. So before we ever join a channel and actually start publishing things, we're just going to go ahead and subscribe to that event listener. So let's go ahead and do that right here. We'll just do client.on. So we're using that client object, and we're going to listen to the user-publish event. So whenever a user publishes their stream here, so listening for this event right here, we need a function that responds to this. So before we actually create the function, let's go ahead and create a function in line here. And I just want to show you how this is going to work. And let's just console out. We'll just do user has joined our stream. So we'll do user has joined our room. Okay, so let's go ahead and copy this. So I want to see this in the console. So we'll get the exact text. We'll save it. And I just want to make sure that none of the other text actually gets in the way. We'll just do inspect here. And let's paste this in. We'll just go ahead and do Control-Shift-R. I want to refresh it so all the updates are added. And let's just go ahead and join a stream. So we've joined a stream. And let's go ahead and open up a new tab. And let's have another user actually join this stream. So if I paste this in here, let's go ahead and join a room. And there we go. So another user has joined. And now we can see this console out right here. So what's going to happen here is we're going to take this event, even though we can't see this user in here just yet. We're going to take this event, take this user's video and audio stream, and then add it to the DOM right here. So that's the method right here. It's just going to fire that off. We're going to have responses to that. And that's really it. So let's go ahead and start building this out. So I'll remove this and we'll make a function to handle all of this. So let's go ahead and take this out right here, and we'll just do user, or we'll just do handle user joined. So this will be the name of the function. We don't have this yet. So let's go ahead and build this down here. So we'll call the function handle user joined, and we're going to make this an async function because we are going to have to wait on some network calls. So we'll make it an arrow function too. And in here, we're going to pass in the user object. So once the user joins, we're going to have the user object, and we're also going to have the media type. So make sure that's camel cased right there with a capital T. We have the user and the media type. Now, the first thing we want to do when a user joins is we're going to take this remote users object right here, and we're going to add in that user here. So we're going to take that user.uid, so the user is going to have a UID, and we're just going to throw in the user object. So the key will be the UID, and then the value will be the user. Now, once we add that user to the remote users, we're going to want our local client to actually subscribe to this user. So we're going to take our client object, and we'll just do subscribe, and we're going to pass in that user object and media type here. So we'll just do user, and we'll do media type here. So we subscribe to that. And then down here, we want to go ahead and actually take that audio and video source and do something with it. So the first thing we'll do is ask a question here. So we're going to check the media type. So if the media type right here is video, what we'll want to do is take that user's video, build a video player, and display it within our DOM here. So before we even do that though, we want to first make sure that the user's video player doesn't already exist within our DOM. Now, this can happen when a user just refreshes their page midstream or maybe leaves and rejoins. We first want to make sure that it doesn't already exist. If it does, we want to remove it and then just rebuild that player. So it's kind of a little annoying check that we have to build beforehand, but let's just go ahead and take care of this. So first, we'll query the DOM and make sure this user doesn't already exist. So we'll do document.getElementById, and we'll just do user-container, and we'll throw in the user's UID. And we want to make sure these are backticks here, not single quotes. So let's change this value right here. Then we'll take the user UID. So it's kind of like what we did right here. In this case, we have the UID value like that. And in this situation, we're going to need to query the user object and then go for the UID like that. So we're going to find the player, and we want to check if this exists. So let's start with that. So let's go ahead and move this down, and I'm just going to ask a question. So we'll just do if the player is not null. So that means it does exist. So we'll do if player is not equal to null. Let's go ahead and quickly just remove it. So we're just doing a little check here. So we'll just do player.remove. Okay, so once all this is done, we can go ahead and start building a new player. So I just realized that this is capitalized. That should not be capitalized. I don't know when that happened. I'm pretty sure I made that lowercase. So let's go ahead and actually grab this value here. So this is actually going to be the same exact thing that we did in the join and display local stream method. So we're going to take both of these values, so the building of the player and then the actual inserting of that player to the video streams wrapper. So we'll bring this down here, and let's just go ahead and paste it in. Now we already created this variable, so we don't need this right here. And let's just go ahead and fix that indentation. So when a user joins, we're going to make sure that player doesn't exist. Then we're just going to go ahead and start building that just like we did before. Now these values right here, all we need to do is update that to get the remote user's UID. So we'll just change this to user.uid, and we'll just update this everywhere else. So let's just copy this value and we'll change that. So the exact same thing that we did before, and earlier on, we went ahead and added that to the DOM, and then we call the play method here. So we want to do the same thing, except for in this case, we're not getting the local tracks, we're getting that user's track here. So we have the user object, we're going to access that object and just go ahead and actually play that. So let's go ahead and go into the user object.video track here, and we're going to call the play method. So we'll do play. And just like we did before up here, we're going to go ahead and get an element by its ID value and actually append that to the DOM here. So in this case, we'll paste this in, and we're going to change this back to user.uid. So we're going to go ahead and find this remote user's video stream player right here. So we're taking this ID value, and we're just going to go ahead and append that. So that's it for the video stream here. We'll just fix that right there. And the next thing we want to do is also check the audio source. So we'll just do if the media type right here is audio now. So media type is equal to audio. Let's go ahead and actually play the audio. So this part's going to be really easy. We'll just do user.audio track. and we'll just call the play method, and that's it. So let's go ahead and save that, and that should be it. So let's go ahead and recap it actually. So we have this client.onUserPublish method. So whenever the user publishes their track, we're going to call this method. In this method, we're going to add that user to the remote users. We're going to subscribe to that remote user. We're going to go ahead and get that video source, and we're going to append it to the DOM. We're going to play it and then play that audio track. So let's save it and test this. So we'll go back here. I'll do Control-Shift-R. I want to refresh everything. Let's join a stream. So I have one user in here. Let's go ahead and copy and paste this. We'll join through another tab. And here we go. We now have 2 users. So we've successfully subscribed to these users, and everything looks pretty good at this point. So what we want to do here is actually make sure that whenever these users leave, we can also tear this down from the DOM. So we want to be able to remove a user from our browser. So let's go ahead and take care of that next. Okay, so I'm back in the streams.js file here, and this method right here is going to be very similar to the user publish. So the same thing, we're going to subscribe to an event, and in this case, we're going to subscribe to whenever a user leaves our stream. So we'll do user-left, and we'll just do handle user left. So we'll create this function here, and in this function, all we'll do is remove the user from the remote tracks right here. We'll stop their tracks from playing, and then we'll just remove them from the DOM. So under user joined here, or handle user joined, let's go ahead and create a new function, and we'll just do let handle user left, and we'll make this an async function. So we'll just do async, and let's just go ahead and pass in the user object. So we'll do user, we'll make that an arrow function, and we're just going to do delete. So we want to remove this user from the remote users. So remote users, and we need to know what user to delete. So we'll find this by the key, which is going to be the user.uid. So once that's removed, we just want to get this user and remove them from the DOM here. So in this case, we'll just do document.getElementById. We want to get this container. So we're going to grab this container right here from the user that was added. So we'll take this value and we'll just remove the user. So let's use backticks right here, throw that in, and we can just do .remove, and that's going to remove the user from the DOM. Okay, so that's it. We have the function. We subscribe to the event right here. So if I save this, let's go ahead and open this back up. I'm going to do Control-Shift-R. We'll refresh it, and we'll just do a refresh right here too. So right now in these 2 tabs, we can see both users. So if I go ahead and close one out, if I go back to this tab, now I'm in here alone. So if I add a user again, we'll try that one more time. Let's just test it. The user will be added. So now we have the user in both tabs here. If I close it, the user is now gone. So we handled that removing event. What we want to do here is actually add in some controls now, because the only way for a user to leave is by simply closing their browser or closing out the tab. So we want to add in some controls here. When the user leaves, we want them to leave the page and then just go back to that lobby. So let's go ahead and take care of that now. Okay, so let's jump back into room.html and let's build out our controls here. So for our controls, we're going to create a wrapper around all of the icons here. So these are going to be buttons to actually handle leaving a room, muting our mic, and turning off our camera. So for this wrapper, we'll just call this controls-wrapper. And inside of this wrapper, we're going to have 3 different icons, and each icon will be wrapped around with a div. So we'll give the wrapper a class here, and we'll call this icon-wrapper, just in case we need some extra styling or controls over this. So we'll create the icon wrapper, and inside, we're just going to use an image tag here. So we'll throw in the image tag. Let's give this an ID here. So the first ID will be the mic button. So we'll just do mic-btn. And we also want to give it a class here. So we want some styling that goes for all of these. We'll just call this one control-icon. And let's go ahead and actually set the source here. So I want to create some spacing. So we're going to have 3 of these. So we'll just go ahead and create one, and then we'll just start replacing all the items here. So for this source here, this is going to be the mic icon. So we'll use our static tag here. Let's make sure it's loaded in at the top. And let's grab that image. So we'll do static. And let's just go into images / and then mic icon. So let's make sure the naming's right. So we have microphone.svg. I'll just go ahead and copy that path right there, go back to room.html, and we'll do microphone.svg. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and scroll so you can see that. For some reason, my mouse keeps jumping around. So that's the image for our first control icon. So let's make sure it works really quick. Let's jump back into that stream. Let's go ahead and just click join or refresh it. And here we go, we have our first icon. So it's really big right now. We'll fix the styling here in a second so we can jump back into room.html and let's just continue with this. So we'll copy and paste this 2 more times. And the second one is going to be the video icon. So let's go back into static here and let's go find that video.svg. So we'll replace this, we'll do video. And for the actual ID, we'll just call this camera button. So this is the camera button and then the leave icon. And this is the one we're actually going to work with right now. So we'll just call this one leave button. And then for the actual image here, this is going to be leave.svg. Okay, so let's go ahead and actually style these up before we check out the page because it's going to be all broken right now. So we'll go into main.css. So in main.css, let's create a new section here. So we'll comment this out and we'll just call this room styling, and then we'll just throw in controls. So room styling because it's still the room page. And then we'll just do a pipe and we'll just say controls. And then we'll just close that out with the dashes. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is style the icon. So we'll just do control dash icon. And I just want to make sure that the sizing is correct here so we can see this right away. So in the control icon, we'll set a height of 100 pixels. Actually, we're going to do 20 pixels here. And then we'll just do a width of 20 pixels. So whatever sizing you need, if you're using different icons, go ahead and do that. In this case, this should work for me right now. So we'll save that really quick. Let's check this out. Join the stream. Let's do a hard refresh, Control-Shift-R. And here we go. So I see the icons down here. I'll zoom in. So now they're a little bit smaller here. So let's go ahead and go back and we'll continue here. So for the icon, I want to create a shadow. So we'll do box-shadow, and we're going to use that variable that we set earlier. So this is going to be var --, and we just call that shadow. So I set this at the top right here. So if you didn't do this, go ahead and copy those values right there. You can set the variable just like I did. It's going to give us a shadow around our box. We want to set a background color. We'll make this white. So we'll just do FFF. And for the cursor, we want to make sure that as we hover over each icon, it actually has a pointer finger. So it looks clickable. We'll set that value. And then I want to add in some padding here. So for the padding, let's just do 10 pixels. And then we'll set a border radius here. And the border radius, I'm just going to use 5 pixels across every item that we set this to. And that looks good for our control icon. Now for that wrapper, I want to make sure that we set this in a specific area. So we'll just use the ID. So controls dash wrapper, not dot wrapper, but dash wrapper. Let's go ahead and display this as flex. So we want to make sure that these are in line right here. So we'll display flex. We'll set the width to 100% for the entire element. And we'll just do justify content center. So we want to make sure all the icon buttons are pushed in together in the center. Now we also want to make sure there's some spacing here. So we'll do column dash gap here. And we'll do 1 EM for the gap. So that's going to create some margin. And I also want to make sure that this entire wrapper is at the bottom of the page. So we'll make this a fixed position. That'll give us access or the ability to place this wherever we want. And in this case, we'll just set the bottom value to 20 pixels. So this will be 20 pixels from the bottom here. Now for the leave button, I always want to make sure that this is red. So we'll just do leave-btn. That's what we give the ID for that value or for that button. And we'll just do background color. And this is going to be an RGBA color here. So we'll do RGB. We'll just leave it like that. And this is going to be 255 and then 80, 80. And then for the opacity, we'll just do 1. So we want to make sure that it's a full color. Okay, so let's test this out and see if it actually looks good. So we'll just refresh this, do a Control-Shift-R. And there we go. So our buttons look pretty good. Again, because I'm so zoomed in, it's always going to be throwing it off of frame a little bit. In this case, the fact that it's over the image or over the video frame looks okay. So it's not really a big deal. So now we want to do, or now what we want to do is actually take care of the functionality. So when we click this button, I want to make sure that a user actually leaves the stream and gets redirected back to that lobby. So let's go ahead and take care of that. So we'll jump back into streams.js here. And I want to add this method just underneath handle user left here. So what I'm going to do is create another function, and I'm going to call this leave and remove local stream. Local stream like that. So we'll make it an async function, set the arrow function up here. And what this function is going to do is we're going to go through our local video and audio tracks here. And we're just going to go ahead and stop the tracks. We'll close them and then we'll unsubscribe from this channel that we joined earlier here. So we're going to leave the channel and then we're going to redirect our user. So because the local tracks are an array here, let's go ahead and loop through those. So we'll create the loop here. And let's just go ahead and set this value. So we'll say let I is equal to 0. We're going to go ahead and loop through local tracks dot length. So we'll set local tracks dot length, and we'll just go ahead and continue this loop. We'll increment I plus plus, and on each iteration, we're going to go ahead and go into local tracks. And in this case, we're going through that current track. We're going to stop the track. And then what we want to do is turn off the track or close the track. So we'll do local tracks and then get the index here really quick, and we'll just do dot close. So the difference between stop and close here is stop will actually stop the track, but we can actually technically open this track up again or start it. When we close the track, that's it. The only way to actually start this up again is to reopen a new track. So close officially closes out a track. So we stop it, then we close it. Now we'll go ahead and leave the track or the channel here. So we'll do client, we'll access the client object here, and we'll just do client.leave here. So we'll call that. That's it. We leave the stream here. And then what we want to do is just go ahead and redirect the user. So we'll do window.open, and we'll just send the user back to the home page. And at this point, it's just going to be a /. We'll go ahead and make sure it's in the same tab. So we'll do self like that. And that's it. So we close all the tracks, we leave, and we redirect the user. Now what we need to do is add an event handler to this leave button right here. So this leave button that we have right here, let's go ahead and bring this down here. We'll get that button. So we'll do document.get element by ID. We'll take that leave button. So leave-btn. Then we'll add an event listener here. And we're going to listen for a click event. And then on click, I'm just going to paste in leave and remove local stream. So there we go. We'll add in some spacing because we're going to do this for the mute button and for the camera off button too. So let's go ahead and save it. Let's try this out. We'll go back here. We'll do a hard refresh. I join the stream here. I can leave. There we go. It unsubscribes me. I left the stream and we can join back here and all the functionality is good. So at this point, let's go ahead and actually handle the muting functionality and then the camera off functionality. So we'll go back in here, go back to stream.js here, and let's create those functions. So underneath leave and remove local stream, we'll create another function here, and I'm going to call this one toggle camera. So we'll start with this one, toggle camera. We'll also make sure that's an async function. We'll create the actual function here. Again, I'm going to keep using arrow functions. So we'll create the function, and what we're going to do is simply check our local tracks here. So we're going into local tracks, and we're going to get the video track. So because this is the camera, the video track is 1. So we're going to go ahead and check that index. We're going to get the video track, and we're going to see if this is muted. So muted will either be true or false. So muted seems like it's just an audio thing, but it also works for the camera track. So muted simply means that the camera is off, and if this value is false, it means that the camera is on. So we're going to check this condition, and if muted is true for the camera, that means the camera is currently off. We'll go ahead and turn it on here. So we'll just do await, and we'll go into local tracks. We'll get the video track, which is the index of 1, and we're just going to call set muted, and this is going to be false. So that's going to turn the camera on. Now, the next thing we want to do is go ahead and actually get the button value. So we'll pass in E right there for the event. We'll do E.target, and then we'll just do .style. So we're getting that button that we clicked on, and we're going to set the background color. So we'll do background color, and this value is going to be set to white. So when we turn it on, we're going to set this to white. And then in the else condition, we're just going to go ahead and do else here. I can copy and paste these values right here. So if muted is currently false, that means the camera is on and we click the button. What we want to do is turn the camera off. So we're going to set muted to true, turning the camera off. And we're going to go ahead and give this button a red color. So we can take this from our CSS file here. And in the leave button where we styled this, we're just going to take this RGB value. We'll go in here and let's just paste that right here. So we're going to change the camera color or the button color, and we're going to change the status of the camera. Now what I want to do is go ahead and actually trigger this function. So let's copy this right here for the leave button. and let's just paste it down here. So we'll move this over so we can see more here. So when we toggle the camera button, so we're going to take this camera button, when we click on it, we're going to add in the event handler. We're just going to trigger toggle camera. So let's go ahead and test this and see how all of this works. So we'll open up the browser here and let's go back to the page. Let's do Control-Shift-R, make sure it's refreshed. Let's join here. So for the camera button, when I click on it, we see that go red and the camera is turned off. And if I click that again, now the camera is back on. So we're going to do the same exact thing for the mic here. So we're going to mute the mic. So right now, if I click on it, it doesn't do anything. And this functionality is actually exactly the same for the mic as it is for the camera. So I'm going to copy this right here, this toggle camera function, and I'm going to call this toggle mic. So we'll change this value, toggle mic. And in this case, all we're going to do is get the audio track. So that's at index 0. So we'll change index 1 to index 0 for the toggle mic function. We're just going to change the colors here. That's exactly what we need. And what I'll do is copy this right here. We'll go ahead and paste that and take this toggle mic method, paste that over that, and we'll just do mic button. So let's go ahead and set this. And you shouldn't hear the mic when I mute it. At least I don't think you should. So let's go ahead and try this. So what I'm going to do is grab my headphones because I should be able to hear an echo. I just want to confirm that this is working. So give me a second. We'll go ahead and test this. We'll mute the mic. So I see that go to red. And what I'm going to do is open this up in another tab here. Okay, now I hear the echo. When I mute that, it's all good. Now I can't hear myself until I unmute these. So everything's looking good. We just took care of muting, leaving, and turning off our camera. So up until now, we've been working with a temporary token and we want to change that so we can generate these dynamically. So we went to the Agora dashboard and we added in our channel name here that we wanted, and then we just generate a token. And this token was generated based off of the channel name, the app certificate, and the app ID. Now, the problem with this is that it's not meant for production. This token expires within 24 hours here after creation, and we can only join one channel. So we want our users to be able to create their own channels and join different channels as they feel free to navigate through our site. So what we're going to do here is download a package that allows us to generate these tokens. So in the backend, we're going to have a view and an endpoint. So whenever a user goes through that lobby and enters in a channel name, we're going to have a function in that view from this package that's going to take in this app ID, the app certificate, and then the channel name based on whatever the user entered in the lobby. So when a user goes ahead and tries to join a room, we'll have a token generated for them, and a user can enter whatever channel that they want. So this way, they're not stuck to one main channel. They can go ahead and create their own channels and also join any channel that's out there, because that token's being generated every single time based on whatever we have in this function. So I'll just go ahead and bring in this package right here. So this is on pypy.org, and this is the Agora token builder. So if we go through this documentation here, we're going to see how to install it and also how to use it. So we can use it with the RTC. That's what we're currently using for video calling. And then there's the RTM token builder. So we're not going to use the RTM one. We're going to use the RTC. So let's go ahead and copy this and run this install. So we'll go ahead and open up our terminal. And I'm going to open up a new terminal here so I don't have to turn off my server. And it looks like I already had it installed when I was running through that demo. So go ahead and run that installation. So that's pip install agora-token-builder. Now, the next thing we want to do is go ahead and bring this package in here. So we'll go back to the documentation here. And here we see how to import it. So we'll go ahead and take in this RTC token builder. And then we also see how to use it. So we have this function, and it looks like we can build it with a UID. So we take in the app ID, app certificate, channel name, UID, a role, and the expiration time. So let's go ahead and just start building this out. So I'll bring this back in here. We have the package installed. My server is on. And I'm going to go back to my views.py file inside of my app here. So this is going to be on the back end now. So we'll go ahead and bring this in. We'll run that install here, or just import the RTC token builder. And I'm going to go back to this package, and I'm going to take in this entire value, and we'll fill out the actual variables here. So we'll bring that back in here. And let's go ahead and create a view to actually first generate this token. So we'll go ahead and create a view, and we'll just call this get token. I'll camel case that. We'll pass in request here, and let's go ahead and pass in that value. So we'll paste this in. So that's the token that I just got from that PyPy package. Again, that's linked up in the video description. So on the return, let's go ahead and specify this. We're just going to go ahead and return a JSON response. So this is going to be an API call that we're going to make asynchronously using Ajax. So let's go ahead and import from Django.http import JSON response. Okay, so we're going to return this value. So we'll do JSON response. And we're just going to go ahead and hit set save to false here. And let's go ahead and also pass in a dictionary that's going to be converted into JSON data, if I can actually click this value. Okay, so we'll throw that in, we'll add in a comma there, and this is going to be our return value. So for the return value, what I want to do is go ahead and pass in the token that we're about to create. So we'll pass in the token, we'll take this variable right here, that's going to be the actual token, and we also want to return back a UID to the user. And I don't know why I'm getting all this markup here, it's kind of bothering me. So we'll throw in a UID. Okay, so that's going to be the response, and we need to set these values because we don't have an app ID, app certificate, or anything like that. So let's go ahead and start setting these. So the first thing I want to do here is create the app ID variable. So we'll do app ID, and let's go ahead and get this from the dashboard here. So we'll go back here, we'll take this value. So this is our app ID, and we'll just paste this in here as a string. So the next thing we want to do is go ahead and get our app certificate. So we'll just do app certificate. And let's set this value so we'll actually get this from our dashboard again. So the app certificate, I'm going to delete this after. I want to make sure that you don't share this with anybody. So make sure that this is hidden. If you're doing this in production, you want to make sure to put this in environment variables because somebody will be able to get your credentials and start using your Agora app here. So I'm going to take this value. Again, I'm going to delete it after this video, so I'm not worried about it. So let's go ahead and just set these values too. So we have that. And then we also need the channel name. So let's just do channel name. We'll camel case that. And the channel name I'm actually going to get from the URL. So when someone in that lobby enters the channel name, we're going to go ahead and pass this to this view. And we're just going to do request.get. So we're using the get method. And then we'll use the get function here. And what we're going to get from that is going to be the channel. So I'll show you how to actually send this request in a second. Now for the UID, this should be a number between 1 and 230, or I believe 232. So what we'll do is import the random method. So we'll do import random. And on each request here, let's go ahead and just generate a random number for the user. So we'll just do random.randint. So this just creates a random integer, and I can specify the values of where I want this to be created between. So we're just going to do 1 and 230. Okay, so we're going to generate a UID for the user. Earlier, we set that to null inside of stream.js here. So it's this value, this UID. Now we're actually going to create that from the backend here. So I mentioned that earlier. Now we're actually going to create it. The next thing we'll want to do is go ahead and actually set the expiration time here. So we'll just go ahead and get the expiration time in seconds. And we're going to set this to 3,600 seconds, which should give us 60 minutes. And we're going to multiply that by 24. So you can set this to whatever you want. I want my token to expire within 24 hours, and I'll leave that up to you and to how you want to actually set that value. So what I want to do here is also get the current timestamp. So we'll just do current timestamp. And I want to get the current timestamp and then actually use this expiration time to be able to find out when we want this token to actually expire here. So we're going to set this value. So let's import time here, and we're going to use time.time. So we're getting the current timestamp, and let's go ahead and actually find out when we want this to expire. So we're going to take this value right here. I'm just going to copy that because I don't feel like writing that out. And we're going to set this to equal the current timestamp. And this is going to be added by the expiration time in seconds. Okay, so that's how we know when it's going to expire. We pass that into the token builder, that method here. And the last thing I need to do is set the role here. So role, if I set that to 1, this means this is the host. If it's set to 2, that'll be just a guest. And at this point, it really doesn't matter because we're not really dealing with authentication. So I'm just going to leave it as 1 for everybody here. So this is the entire view. And now what I want to do is actually create the URL, and we want to actually trigger this endpoint, pass in a channel name, and get back a token. So what I'll do here is I'll test it manually, and then we'll add it into that lobby. So once we log in, this will be done automatically. So let's go ahead and go to our URLs here. And in our URLs, let's go ahead and create another route, and we'll just call this get_token. So we'll go ahead and throw in the view. So we'll do views.getToken here. Let's save that, and let's go ahead and test this in the browser here. So I'll go ahead and refresh that, and we'll pass in the URL here. So we'll just do get_token, and we're just going to pass in the question mark, specify the channel, and we'll just say my new channel. Okay, so we want to make sure we pass in the channel, set those values correctly, because if you don't, then it's going to give you an error. So when we go here, this means that the view actually worked correctly here. So now we see a token, we see a UID, and if I refresh this again, we're going to see a new token generated every single time. And you'll notice this UID is always going to be between a number or a number between 1 and 230. So it's all working correctly. And what's happening here is we send this to the backend. We pass in channel, so we get that from the get request right here. So we take the channel name right here, and we pass all of this in, generate the token, and return it. Now, this right here is basically exactly the same thing of what's happening in this section right here. So it's just sending a request and creating a token. So just to make sure that this token is actually working correctly, let's do this manually before we actually have this happen automatically from the backend. So what I'm going to do here is copy this token, and I just want to make sure everything's working. So we'll go to streams.js, and the app ID should be the same. So let's go ahead and just paste in the token right there in that value. And what app ID did I use in the backend? So I just want to make sure it's the same one. So we'll copy that, paste that in here. For the channel name, now this value right here needs to be whatever we used to create this token. So that means that it has to be exactly to how we spelt it right here. So take that value and change the channel name. So again, this will be done automatically. Now for the UID, we need to make sure that this is set to whatever value was returned. Again, this is all basically encoded into this token. So we'll go back here. Let's actually set the UID this time. So we'll set it to 127. And let's remove this right here because we're not actually trying to return a UID anymore. And let's pass in this UID into the join method. So I believe that's all we needed to update. We have the channel name, or the app ID, channel, token, and the UID that we generated with that token. So we'll save this, and let's go ahead and actually test out our application. So we'll go back here, let's join a stream, and it looks like it's all working. So we have actually successfully generated a token. It's not that cool because we're still having to manually add in that value, but we're able to generate the token. So all we have to do from here is go back to that lobby, add in an option to actually enter a channel name, take that channel name value and pass it into this page here. So let's go ahead and make that work right now. It's going to be pretty cool once we actually see it in action here. So we'll jump back to the lobby here, and the first thing I want to do is create another form field here. So let's go ahead and copy and paste that, and this value right here is going to be a text value, or the type will be text. We're not going to have any value right now, but we do want to set a name here. So let's just do name, and the channel we'll just call room. So channel, room, it's all interchangeable at this point. In this case, I'm just going to call it room because that kind of makes more sense here. So let's add in some placeholder text, and we'll just say enter a room name. So we'll do ... to close that off here. And let's go ahead and just make sure that this can be, or this is always capitalized because it is case sensitive. So if you happen to not pay attention to case sensitivity, you might be typing in a room name and be getting a completely different room from someone else here. So let's set the style. We'll do text-transform. Here, let's move over here so you can see everything, and we'll minimize this. So text transform, and we're just going to say uppercase here. Okay, so that's going to take in our room name. We're not going to use the username just yet, so we just want to make sure this form field is here. Let's go ahead and refresh this lobby here, and here we go. We see a room name. Okay, so now what I want to do is add into this handle submit function right here. So I want to make sure that we can actually make a request to the backend, get a token, and then we're going to set that in a session here so we can get that on the other page. So we're still going to redirect the user, but we first want to set a session. So just after prevent default, let's go ahead and actually get the room name here. So let's just do let, and then we'll do room, and this is going to be equal to e.target. So the actual input field. So e.target.room. So whatever you call the name right here, make sure you're using this value. So in this case, the target is the form, and I keep misspelling target. So e.target, and then we're just going to go ahead and get the value of room, and we want to make sure that this is uppercase, so 2 uppercase like that. So let's go ahead and set this value, and C has to be capitalized here. So we get that room value, and once we set that value in a variable, we want to go ahead and make a request here. So this is already an async function. If it's not, or if you don't have that, make sure you set that. And what we're going to do is use fetch to actually make this response or make this request. So first we'll set response here because we're about to get that token. We want to set a wait right here. And then we'll just do fetch here. So we'll pass in fetch, and we're going to go to this URL. So we're going to do get underscore token. That's where we have that endpoint. And then we're just going to go ahead and pass in the channel name. So we'll do channel, and this is equal to, and then we're going to pass in the actual room name. So we want to make sure these are backticks because we need to pass in a variable. So we'll pass in the room name from the form. Okay, so that's going to go ahead and make that request. Then we want to get that response. So we'll just do data, and that's going to be equal to await response.json. So we have to parse that data when we get it back. And the next thing we want to do is go ahead and actually set these values in a session. So from this response, we want to get the UID. Remember, we return back a UID and a token right here. So we're going to get both of these values and set these in the session. So we'll go back here. Let's go back to our lobby.html page, and the UID will be data.uid. So we're getting that from the response. And the next thing we want to do is go ahead and get that token. So we'll get token, and that needs to be a variable. So we'll do token, and this is going to be data.token. So once we have these values, let's go ahead and set our session storage. So I'm not going to go into details of how session storage works. This is something that's going to be kind of assumed that you already understand, but there's things like session storage, which basically last on the session of when you're in the browser or on the web page. There's local storage, and we also have cookies. So in this case, we're just going to use session storage because we want these items to be removed the second a user actually leaves the page here. So let's go ahead and set that. So we set a key, so the name of the key, and then the actual value, which will be the UID. And then I'm just going to copy and paste this 2 more times. So we also want to get the token, pass that in. And I also want to pass along the room name so we can have that in the front end. So let's go ahead and take this value, the room, and then we just redirect the user to the next page. So let's go ahead and give this a shot here. So if I go back here, let's go to this page, we'll refresh it, and let's take a look at our session storage. So right now, we're actually not going to use that dynamic token. We're still using the one that we manually have hard-coded in, but I just want to make sure that that session was actually set. So here we have local storage, we also have session storage, and here are where the values are going to be added. So if I enter a room name, we'll just say new year. So whatever value you want, let's go ahead and hit join. We're redirected to this page. Now we see a UID and a token. So for some reason, the room wasn't set. So I also want to set that room value. Okay, so I'm not sure why the room's not being set. Let's try that one more time. Let's try doing a hard refresh. We'll do Control-Shift-R, and let's just enter a random room name. And for some reason, the room is not being set. Okay, so it was, I just needed to move that down. That's because I'm so zoomed in here. So now that I have these values, what I can do is actually get these values on the front end and use this token, UID, and room name, and adjust all these values here. So let's go ahead and take care of that now. So we'll go back into Stream.js here. And what we're going to do in Stream.js here is actually get the value from the session here. So we'll go to the channel, and we can also get session storage here, and we'll do get item instead of set item. So we're going to get the item by the key. So the first thing we want to do is go ahead and get the channel. So we'll do channel, or did I call that room? I think I called that room. So we'll get the room. We'll take this value right here. We'll replace our token. So copy and paste that. We'll set the token, and then we'll also change the UID here. So for the UID, let's go ahead and paste in that value. This will be UID, and we always want to make sure this is a number here. It's just going to cause some issues with Agora. Agora wants this to be an integer, so let's go ahead and set that. So we have these values now, and what I want to do here is when we first load up our page, I want to actually display this room name and make sure that whatever we got from the session is actually working. So we'll just go ahead and go to document.get element by ID, and I want to get the room dash name. So let's see if we actually set that. Did I add in the ID for the room name? I did. So that's the room name at the very top here. So we'll get the room name and we'll just do .inner text here. So inner text, and we're going to set this to whatever we got from the session here. So here we have the actual channel. So that's going to be channel or room name, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to pass in that value. Now, one thing I want to check here is just to make sure that we actually have a session or a room name and a token inside of our session here. So instead of just calling this method, what I'm going to do is write a try catch here. So if we happen to not have a session, it's just going to go ahead and redirect us back to the home page. So if everything works correctly, we'll just go ahead and continue, and then we'll just do except here or catch. I mixed that up with Python methods. And we'll just pass in the error. So if things don't go correctly, meaning for some reason we couldn't join that channel, maybe we had no UID or token, we just want to go ahead and console out this error. So we'll do console.error, and we'll console out the actual error. So once we console out the error, let's just go ahead and do window.open. Well, technically that error won't show, so I'll leave that up to you. But for now, we'll just redirect back to the home page. So whatever you want to do with that error is up to you. So we'll send the user back to the home page. And now let's go ahead and give this a test. So we want to save everything, save our lobby, and let's give this a shot. So we'll log back out. Let's do Control-Shift-R, and let's go ahead and test this out. So let's just say new year. And there we go. So I'm in the new year room now, and this was generated from that session. So if I want to change the name, let's just say testing. There we go. The room name has changed, and now we have a token generated dynamically. And I want to show you one more thing here. So if we want to have someone join this room, what we do here is we give them this name, just like I showed you in the demo. So actually, I just realized this should be done in a new tab inside of incognito mode because we are using sessions. So we'll go ahead and just grab this URL here. Actually, I already have it added right here. So port 8000 here. We have another tab open, and we want to join by New Year. So we'll copy that again. And let's go back to this tab in incognito mode. So now if I go ahead and join the room, allow it so we don't have any feedback here. Let's make sure to mute the mic. And there we go. So now we can actually join other rooms, join other people within a channel here. And if I zoom out, we can actually see each other. And there we go. We have successfully created these dynamic rooms, and we can actually go to each other's channel. Now, if I go to a room that is not the same as the other user, so I'll leave right now. And let's just do new year 1. So 1-1, something like that. So this will actually create a new room. So now we will not see each other in the rooms because we are in 2 separate rooms. We both generated tokens, and in those tokens is embedded that specific channel name. So this part's taken care of. And what I want to do next here before we move on to actually displaying the user name is I want to actually start styling up the website. So what we'll do is we'll finish up all the styling, and then we'll display the name. So for now, we'll still keep this until the styling's done, and then we'll get to that. So let's go ahead and close out this tab here, and let's start by styling up this lobby page. So there's not that much we need to do here. We'll add in that username, we'll style up the form and the buttons, and just make sure that everything looks good. So let's jump back into the lobby.html page here. So in this section, it looks like we have most of what we need. The only thing I feel like I'm missing right now is just the ID over this wrapper right here. So we'll do ID, and this will just be welcome dash message. I want to make sure I can have custom styling to the H1 tag and to this sentence right here. And we also want to add in a field for our username. So we'll have the room, and then this right now won't be functional, but it will be in the next step here. So we'll just say enter your name, and we'll also just make sure that's capitalized. And let's change this back to username here. And that looks good for the HTML. So we'll go back here. Let's refresh that. So we have 2 fields here, and let's go to the CSS. So in the CSS here, let's first style that welcome message here. So we'll jump down here. We have the room styling here. We have the lobby page. So let's just copy this right here to separate everything. We'll bring this down here, and we'll just say lobby. Okay, so our CSS is separate. And the first thing I want to do is make sure that this logo is styled, and I feel like I already added most of what I needed there. So the logo actually looks pretty good. So let's jump to that welcome message. So we'll grab the welcome message by the ID. So welcome dash message. Let's see, how did I get that message. Welcome hyphen message. Okay, thought the color looked a little bit weird on that. Okay, so we have the welcome message, and I just want to make sure everything in the welcome message is centered. So we'll just do text align center, and we'll just set the margin of the bottom. We'll set that to 20 pixels here. And then I also want to set the font size to each part of that message here. So for the H1, we'll just set that to 36 pixels. So we'll remove this right here. We'll do font dash size 36 pixels. And we'll also set the paragraph tag there too. So we'll just do the P tag here. And I think this will be good at 16. So we'll set these values here. And let's go ahead and just make sure that looks good. Let's do Control-Shift-R just to make sure we can see that. Okay, so that looks good so far. And now I want to make sure to change this font right here and then the form fields along with the button. So for the font here, we're just going to use a Google font. So let's just go ahead and look up Google fonts here. And I'm using the Roboto font here. So we'll just take that and import it. And I believe I got the font weight of 300 and 500. So you can do a search if you don't see this, but here's the font right here. And we'll just select the sizes. So we'll just do 300. So we'll set that, and then we'll also do 500. So let's go ahead and minimize this, and we'll select 500 for the style. So I got both stylings, and I'm trying to figure out how to actually get the font to pop up now. Here we go. So I can import it directly into the HTML, or I can add this to the CSS. What I'll do is just import it directly into the CSS file. So we'll bring that in right here, bring this in at the top here, and we'll just import that above our variable. So we'll paste that in. So that gives me the font and the font weights. And then the last thing I have to do is just follow this method to actually set the font type. So let's go ahead and bring that in here, and we'll just set that for everything. So we'll add that into the body. So that'll add in this font type for the entire body. So basically all the text on our webpage for now will just be this. Okay, so that looks a little bit better. And let's jump to these form fields here. So inside of this section right here for the lobby styling, just underneath the welcome message, let's go ahead and get the form fields. So down here, we'll first style the wrapper around each form field. So we'll do form field. And all we want to do here is just add in some margin. So we'll just add in 20 pixels of margin. Then we want to go ahead and also style the label. So we'll copy and paste that, and we want to style the form field label. So we'll get the child element like that. And for this, I just want to set the font type here, or font size. So font dash size, this is going to be 16 pixels. And then I'll set some line height. And this is going to look a lot better on your screen than mine, just because I'm so zoomed in, so it's always going to break it. But I've already tested this, and it looks good with these sizes here. So that's the form label. And now we actually want to get the fields here, the input fields. So we'll go ahead and get the form dash field. And in this case, we'll get all the input values. And let's go ahead and first set the width here. So we'll do width, and this is going to be 100 pixels here. So we want to, or 100%. So we want to make sure the field takes up the entire container. So after that, we also want to set a border to these fields. So we'll do border, and this is going to be 2 pixels. And I'm going to set this to solid for the border type. And then for the RGBA here, let's go ahead and set these values. I already have these preset. This will be 198. Then we have 202, 219, and then the opacity will be set to 1. So it's a full solid color. We also want to add in some border radius. This will be 5 pixels. And then after the border radius, I want to make sure there's some padding in here. We'll set that to 10 pixels for the input field. And just to make sure that the sizing isn't all weird, we'll just do box hyphen sizing. And this will be border dash box. Okay, let's set that. Let's go ahead and do Control-Shift-R. And that looks much better. So if I zoom out, it looks a little bit better. All the input values look good. So let's also get this button right here. So for the button here, let's go ahead and copy this value. And in this case, I can just get the specific input field. So that button is technically an input field. So we'll set the type here, and then that'll be submit. So that'll be the submit button of this form. So in here, let's see, we just want to set a background color and remove the border, and then set a color to the text here. So we'll just do background color, and this is going to be RGBA. Again, I have these values preset. We'll do 198, and then we'll do 202, and then 219 with 1 opacity. So 219 and then 1. Now for the border, let's just go ahead and remove that. So we'll just do border none, so we don't want a border on this button. And then let's just set the color, and that's going to be white. So we just want some white text here. Save that, and let's take a look. Okay, so that seems a little bit off. That's not what I had in my demo. Let's see, 198, 202, 219, and 1 for the color. Oh, okay, I actually got the completely wrong color. So that was the border color. This is supposed to be 75, and then we have 93, then 172. Okay, so let's go ahead and refresh that. And there we go. That looks a lot better. Now, if I minimize this screen, I also want to make sure that this is responsive. So let's see, if I do inspect, for some reason I can't make it smaller. I just want to make sure that this text doesn't go off screen and the text actually shrinks when the size of this goes to like a phone size or something like that. So let's go ahead and actually set this up. So we'll do at media screen, and then we'll just set and then this will be max width, max dash width. And then we'll just do 450 pixels. So that's about where this will break right here. So we'll set that. And what I want to do here is first set the form container size. So we'll do form dash container. And this will just be 95%. So we'll just set a size to it, 95%, form container. Why does that look funny? Oh, I didn't set the width here, so I just set the value. So we'll just do width. This will be 95%. And then the welcome message, we just want to change the size of the H1 tag. So we'll do welcome dash message, and then we'll do H1, and we'll just set the font size to 24 pixels. So do font size. I don't know why it's not auto-filling. I get lazy when I get used to that. So 24 pixels, and let's save it and test this out here. Okay, so I'll do Control-Shift-R just to make sure all the changes apply. And once the screen size changes, the font sizes should change and the site should adjust here. So that actually looks good. There we go. That looks decent for mobile use right there. Okay, so now we just want to jump into the next page. So let's go ahead and actually style all those video frames and what the name on those video frames would look like. So let's jump back into our CSS file because I think all the HTML inside of our room.html file is set. We have the room name, we have the video streams, and all the controls are already styled. So really we just need to style up this room name and then the actual contents within that video stream. So we'll go back to our main.css file here, and let's go back to this room styling right here. So we have our video streams, and we first want to actually set our room name wrapper. So this part at the top right here, I want to make sure, let's go back in there actually. So new year. And I'll just keep using that and I'll throw in my name. So I want to make sure that this is centered and actually looks good. So let's go back here and we'll take the room -name -wrapper. Okay, so all I want to do here is just set the font size and also make sure that it's all centered. So we'll just do text align and we'll do center. And then for the font size, we'll just set that to 18 pixels. Okay, so let's test this out, do Control-Shift-R. I'll always hard refresh it just to make sure it's updated, and that looks a little bit better. So let's jump back into the next section. So what I want to do next here actually is make sure that the name inside of this video container is actually floating on top of it as opposed to floating inside of it as opposed to on top of it. So I want to make sure that it's like part of the video. So for this, we're going to have to make this a relative position, or not a relative, but an absolute position. So we have to go to the parent, which is going to be the video container here. And I first need to set position relative. So we'll set that value. And then inside of this next section, so for the actual username wrapper, which is set inside of streams.js, let's open that up so you can always have something to reference. Let's see, inside of JS, let's open that up to the side here. We'll bring that in. So we have our name right here. So we have username wrapper. So we'll take this value and let's go ahead and move that over. And let's get this class here. So for the username wrapper, let's go ahead and set position to absolute. So position absolute. And let's also set where we're going to place this. So this is almost like a fixed positioning. So we'll set top to 10 pixels. So this will be 10 pixels from the top. And then we want to set left to 10 pixels from the left. So this will put this in the top left corner with a little bit of spacing here. Okay, so we also want to set the Z index just to make sure it's always on the top layer. So we'll just set that to a very high value. And let's set the background color here. And this is going to be a black color. So we'll do RGBA, so RGBA, and we're just going to do 0, 0, 0, and then for the opacity, we'll just do 0.03. So that's going to make it transparent, and this is supposed to be 0.3. There we go. I thought that looked a little bit off there. Now, we also want to create some padding here, so we'll do padding, and this is going to be set to 10 pixels. So remember, this is the wrapper around the name. Well, I guess that's self-explanatory. And then after that, we also want to set the border radius. So for the border radius, we'll set that to 5 pixels. We've been using that all the time. And we'll set the font size to 14 pixels. Okay, so we also want to make sure we have a color here. So if we have a black background, I want to make sure that the color is white and visible. Let's go ahead and give that a test here. And we'll just do Control-Shift-R again. Let's check this out. Okay, so that looks a little bit better. We still have a few things that we want to fix up here. So we have the name, that looks good. And you notice how, if I zoom in here, you can almost see this video player going outside of that container. So we want to fix that and make sure that it's not overflowing here. So I'll zoom back out and we're going to fix this issue right now. So for this, we don't ever actually build in that video tag there, or the HTML video tag. That's done dynamically through JavaScript with the play method. So we don't see it. That's why you might miss it in the styling, but it is there. So let's go ahead and actually set that. So we'll just do video, and then we'll do video player actually. So we'll get that value. And in this case, we're going to get all the child elements. So instead of actually styling that video player, all we need to do is get all the child elements to the wrapper, and we'll just set the border radius. So that means everything inside of that wrapper will be, well, we'll have a border radius of 5 pixels, and that should fix our issue. So let's go ahead and give this a test, save it. We'll do Control-Shift-R, a hard refresh, and there we go. So now it no longer sticks out. So that looks okay. The border radius is set here. So the last thing I want to do is actually set a little bit of responsiveness here. So let's go ahead and go back to our CSS file. And in here, what I'm going to do is set the media screen here. So we'll just do @media screen. And I just want to make sure that the video container, the actual flex box, adjusts in size for smaller screens. So we'll just do @media screen and then we'll do max width. So max dash width. And for this, we're going to set this to 1650 pixels. So I was working on a bigger screen earlier, so I want to make sure that whatever I set the styling to earlier actually adjusts for smaller screens. I didn't run into this issue till pretty much prepping the demo, so it was the last minute here. So we'll set that video container, and we're going to set flex bases here, and we're going to set this to 300 pixels. So that's going to make sure that the video containers pretty much at a minimum have 300 pixels there in width. And then we'll set the min height here. We'll adjust this to smaller screens also, and we'll set that to 200 pixels. Okay, so let's go ahead and refresh this. So we'll do Control-Shift-R, and I guess at this point I should add another screen here. Let's try that. Let's join the room. I believe that was New Year. And we'll just do Peter for the name. We'll get creative here. Let's mute the mic, so we'll allow all access. Okay, so it should start adjusting to the screen sizes here. So the minimum height should adjust at a certain amount here. And I think everything looks pretty good here. So that's good. So we have this page styled up. So now let's actually add in the names here. So when I set my name inside of this form right here, whatever I set this to, that should display, and for all other users, we should be able to see their name. So let me first explain this concept and how this is all gonna work. So in order to display a name, we have a small issue, and that is the fact that we can't actually pass along this data to other users. So if I go back to Stream.js here, in the handle or inside of the join and display local stream method, all we're doing is subscribing to a specific channel, and then we're just passing along our user information. Now, the only thing that we're passing along is our UID and our audio and video tracks, And I wish there was a way to pass in a name, but there really isn't a way to do this. So we're going to have to build this in by hand here. So there's different ways that you can go about doing this, but in my case, we're actually going to create a table in the database and store temporary values. So for example, when we join here, inside of the handle user join method, one thing that we do have access to is this user ID, and we also always know the room name here. So what we're going to do here is inside of this form, when a user fills out this form, we're going to go ahead and add in our name to the session here. So if I go back to lobby here, let's go into lobby.html. Let's go ahead and actually build this in right now. So we'll go ahead and get the name value. So let's actually update this, and then we'll talk about the database. So we're going to get the name value. We're going to get the form's name section right here. And let's just go ahead and leave that so it doesn't have to be capitalized. So we're getting the name from this input field. And in this case, we're getting that by username. So let's update this value, and I'll leave the variable as name. So we're going to take this value and we're going to throw this into the session here. So we'll just do name like this, and we'll throw in name value. So let's go ahead and give this a test and check this out. So I was going to do a little bit more explaining, but I figured once I start showing you, it'll just make more sense. So let's just do new year for the room again. And let's just do Dennis. Now, before I hit submit, I'm going to go ahead and open up my sessions, and we should see the name actually appear here in the session. So we have the room token and UID from the previous session. Let's join again. Now we have a new token, a new UID, and a room name, but now my name is being stored in there. So I can access this value now from that join stream method. So we'll close this out. So at this point, let's go ahead and just get this value from the session. So we'll go to join streams here, and let's just get the name. So we'll do let, and I'll just capitalize this. So we'll do name, and this is going to be equal to session storage.getItem, and we'll take in that name. Again, just to make sure I got that right, I called that name here. So let's keep that value. So when we register here, what's going to happen is we have access to this name now, but we still have no way to actually pass it along to all other users. So what I'm going to do here is actually create a database table here. It's going to be a model. And in this table, we're going to make a request before all of this continues here. And we're actually going to send a request, and this is going to be a post request to the backend. We'll create an instance of this model where we'll store the room name, the user's name, and the UID value. So I'll go to models.py here. So this is going to be the flow. So we're going to create a model called room number or room member. This model right here, or database table, will store our name, the UID, and the room name. Now, whenever we join, it's going to go ahead and create this. Then on handle user join, so on this event, what's going to happen here is we're going to jump down here. So when we join, all other users will have this function fire off, and we're going to have another method that's going to query the database. So we're going to take this UID value because that's unique. We'll take the current room name because we do have access to that, and we're going to query the database by that UID and by the room name. So we're going to find a user that has that. And then once we have the actual instance of that database model, we're going to be able to return back that name and then simply add that in here. So that's my explanation here. So we'll actually update this value. So that's my explanation. Let's just go ahead and jump right into it. I'm not sure if that made sense. So let's just start building this out. So the first thing that I want to do here is create this model. So again, in models.py within our app here, let's go ahead and start building this out. So we're going to call this room member. And again, I think things will start making sense once you see it. And what the heck did I spell here? So room member. Okay, so I completely messed that up. So let's go ahead and do models.model. So we're creating a model, and this model right here is going to store the name. So this is going to be our user's name. This will be models.char field. So it's just going to be a string value. We do need to set a max length. That's going to be 200 characters. We do want to store the UID. So this is going to be models.char field. And we're just going to store that as a string right now because we're going to parse it anyways into an integer. And we also want the room underscore name. So we'll store all of these values. So models.char field. And let's go ahead and set that value also. Okay, so we have our database table. I'm just going to return back a string value. So we'll do str underscore, we'll pass in self. And for the user, let's just return back self.name. So we'll always return back the user's name. Okay, so here's our model. Now we do need to run some migrations. So we never ran migrations. So let's go ahead and prep these. So we'll do Python manage.py make migrations. So we're prepping the database to be updated. Then we're going to run Python manage.py migrate. And this is going to be all inside of our SQLite database. So we just created that database table. Now, I actually want to be able to view the admin panel. So let's go ahead and actually create a super user so we can log in. So we'll do Python manage.py create super user. And I'm going to call my user Dennis. And we'll just do dennis@email.com. We'll just make up some email. Okay, so I need to add in a password. So we'll just go ahead and add that and then confirm it. Okay, so my super user is created. Now I want to actually view this. So let's go ahead and go into my app here. We'll go to admin.py and we're going to register this model in the admin panel. So we're just going to do from.models and we're going to import room member. Okay, so all we need to do is admin.site.register. And let's just go ahead and register the room member so we can actually see it. Okay, so the URL is already set for the admin panel. If we go back to our root directories URLs file, here we have admin. So let's go ahead and check this out. So we'll make sure that we can see the table. We'll go to /admin. And I'm already logged in, or my data is already pre-filled. And here we go, we see room members. So we don't have anything here yet, and we're gonna have this created dynamically here. So now what we wanna do is go ahead and create an endpoint. So whenever a user joins our stream, or whenever they call join and display local stream, we're gonna send a request to the backend. This is gonna happen asynchronously, and it's gonna go ahead and create a user for us. So in this case, we're gonna close out URLs here. And let's go ahead and go into our views.py here. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a view, and this is going to be create user. We'll camel case that. We'll throw in request here. And let's go ahead and return a value here. So we'll do return, and this will be a JSON response here. And we'll set this in a second. So whenever we're creating this member, the first thing we're going to do here is get the data from the front end. So we're going to send a post request to this backend. So we need to parse this data. So we're going to import JSON because it's going to be JSON data from the front end. So we're going to go ahead and import JSON, and we're just going to do JSON.loads. So we're parsing that data. So it's going to be a string. We're going to parse it, and we're going to parse request.body. So we're going to get that data from the front end. Then what we want to do is either create a room member or find a room member if they already exist. So let's go ahead and import that. So inside of our views, we're going to do from.models import room member. And let's go ahead and actually set this up here. So we're going to set the value of member. I don't know why I can't spell member today. And we're going to use the get or created method. So we also have to add in created. So this is the same thing as a get method when we try to query the database. But in this case, created will be true or false. So if this object does exist, then created will be false. And then if it's created for the first time, this will be true. So we'll just do room member.objects.get underscore or underscore created. So if we're using this, remember you need created, and it's the second value. So this will return back the object and true or false. So let's go ahead and actually try to query the database for this. So we have this model right here. And at this point, we don't have any users. So we'll actually create a user from the front end right now. So we'll set the name here. So we're technically querying the database. We're going into data, and we're going to send the name value here. So we're going to check for the user's name. Then we're going to go ahead and find the user by the ID, because sometimes we might have a user with the same name. There could be two Dennises in a room. So we want to make sure that we also check the ID. So we're also going to check the UID value, which we'll pass in all caps like that. So let's go ahead and set that. And then we also might have different rooms. So there can be a Dennis in a different room with the same ID as mine. So as long as the room is set, then the actual UID value should be unique to the room. So we'll do room name, and this is how we're just making sure all values are unique here. So we'll pass this in as room underscore name from the front end. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get or create a room member. In the response, we're just going to go ahead and return back the name value. So we'll just do name, and we'll do, let's see, how did I want to do this? So in this case, we're just going to get data, and then we'll throw back the name. So we're not having to get it from here. We're just going to get from, or get the value from whatever was sent from the front end. So we're just returning back the name. So then we'll just set false to safe, or safe to false here. Okay. So we have that set. Technically, we don't need this response. All we need to know that it was okay. The objective here is simply to store this user in the database. And you can also use something like Redis down the road, and I might make a video on how to do it with that and using an in-memory database. But in this case, we'll just do it like this. Okay, so we are sending a post request, and with a post request, we do need to send a CSRF token. Now, at this point, instead of sending that token, I'm going to leave that up to you and how you want to handle that. I'm just going to import a method that's called CSRF exempt. So basically, it just means that we're going to go ahead and tell our view that we don't need a CSRF token. Now, it's still good to have one, but in this case, I just don't want to spend time in setting that up because that's not the objective of this video. Okay, so we have CSRF exempt. This is a decorator, and we'll just add that in here so we can actually send post data. Okay, what the heck did I click there? So we have the @ symbol and then CSRF exempt. Okay, so now we need to create a URL for this. So let's go back into our urls.py and we'll create another path, and this is going to be create_member. We'll set this value, and we're going to throw in a / right there, and we're sending post data, so we're not going to have to send anything in that GET request, and then we'll just do create user. So this should actually be member. I feel like that's better because it's just a stream member. So let's change that. I'll copy and save that, and then we'll just paste that in right here. So create member is now the view name. Okay, so now from the front end, here's what we need to do. So we need to go ahead and create a function that's going to send this request from the front end and actually create the user. So let's go ahead and go all the way to the bottom here. So down underneath our toggle mic method, we'll just put this at the very bottom, and we're going to go ahead and create a function. This is going to be called create member. So we're just going to send a request to the backend. So we'll make sure this is an async function right here. Make sure it's also an arrow function, or I guess however you want to set that up here. And in create member, let's go ahead and set this response here. So we'll just do response. So response, and this is going to be await. So we're using async await. Let's set the value, and I'm just setting the response just in case you happen to want to get this data, but technically this can all be stored in the front end, so it really doesn't matter. So let's go ahead and throw in fetch here. So we're making a request to this endpoint that we just created. So we call this create_member. And I want to make sure that's correct here. So let's go back to our URLs here, create member. So we're sending a request here, and this is going to be a post request. So we need to add in some more information. So we'll have to set the method here. So the method is going to be a post method. We'll set that in a string. We'll set the post method, and then we want to send some header data here. So we'll just throw in headers, and let's see, for the content dash type here, we'll set this to application, and then we're going to say this is JSON data. Okay, so that's the content type, and now we need to send some data with this body. So we're going to set the body here. I'll just scroll down a little bit. With this, we want to make sure the data is stringified. So we'll do JSON.stringify, and we'll actually pass in the body. So we're just throwing in the name. So in the view, we're getting back the name here. So we're throwing in the name, UID, and room name. So we want to make sure all this is set. So we'll throw in the name. That's going to be the name that we set from the session. So at the very top, we have the name right there. Let's go ahead and set that. And the next thing we want to do is go ahead and get the room name. So room_name, and that's going to be the channel. So we set that value as a channel. So we'll just throw that in. That's also taken from the session at the top. And let's see, the last value we want to set is going to be the UID. So we'll do UID, and that's going to be the UID value. Now we're going to send this data, and we're also going to get back a member as a response. So the actual username. So once it's added, let's go ahead and return that. So we'll just do let member, and this is going to be await, and we're just going to return or wait for this response, and that's going to parse. We're going to parse this data once we send it, and let's just go ahead and return this from the function. Okay, so create member sends this data. It should create an object in the database and then returns that. So now we want to call this. So we want to call this up here inside of join and display local stream here. So let's see, I think I should call this right after we set or join the channel here. So let's go ahead and call it right here, or maybe after local tracks. So we'll just go ahead and set the value to member. Let's go ahead and call create member, and let's see. Okay, so we should get back the member. That's going to be in the return value of that function. And now I can go ahead and update this section right here to actually throw in the username here. So this is going to be member. Let's see, maybe I didn't grab that. Okay, so we're going to get the member object, and then we're going to do dot name. Okay, so let's see, I returned it back as name. So this is what we're setting back or sending back to the front end here. So we're just throwing the member name in here, so it's no longer going to be that static value. So at this point, I'm the only one that's going to see this member name, and I'm just going to make sure that it's working correctly. And then we're going to have to call the same method, except for we're going to have to get the member for other users. So let's test the first part here, and let's make sure everything's working. So I'm going to refresh this. Everything looks good. We have no members. So if I do Control-Shift-R, let's go ahead and give this a shot, and we might run into some errors. Let's just do new year, and we'll just call this member Dennis. Okay, so I have undefined, and if I go to my admin panel, it looks like the member was not created. Let's see, maybe I got an error in the backend. So I'll open up my terminal, and let's see. Create member, so manager, get or created. Manager object has no attribute get or created. Let's see. I know that's a method. I'm not sure why it's doing that. So let's go ahead and just check that out. RoomMember.objects.get or created. Oh, that's supposed to be create, not created. Okay, so let's give that a shot one more time. So we'll go back here. Let's just go ahead and go back to the home page. We'll just type in the room name, and we'll do Dennis. Okay, still undefined. If I refresh this, I see that Dennis was created, so it did work. For some reason, it's just not returning that value. So we're halfway there. It's looking somewhat good. So let's go ahead and actually console this out, and let's see what's going on. Maybe I have an error. Let's go ahead and see. So we'll go back to streams here, and let's see inside of the create member method. We send the request, so the member is created, so all the values actually look good here. So if I go to Dennis, I can see the UID, I see the room name, so that's looking good, and it seems like it's in the response. So we get back that response, we do member, await response, we parse the data, so that part looks good. And then in the actual join method, let's see when we're calling this. So we call create member, and then we do member.name. So let's just console out member. Let's just see what's going on here. So console.log. And let's just throw this in here. So we'll throw it in as a string and then the actual value. I just want to see what I'm getting because I'm not sure what part's not working. Maybe it's just the response. Okay, so let's leave the room here and let's delete this member from the database just so we're not getting errors until we fix it. We'll do new year. We'll throw in Dennis. Okay, so it looks like a promise is pending. So let's see, I thought I called await in this method. I make this mistake quite a bit. So we have await and await. I think I need to call await in this method. So that's probably what's happening is we're setting this value too early. So let's remove the caps here and let's just call await. And I think I can remove that and I'm pretty sure it's going to work this time. So I'll try to do Control-Shift-R again. We'll just refresh that. And there we go. Okay, so my name is now displayed, but if another user joins, their name won't be displayed. So we want to make sure to actually get that value. So now let's go ahead and create another endpoint in the backend. So we'll go back to our views here, and the next endpoint that we want to create is going to be to get a member. So let's go ahead and create that. So we'll do another function or a function-based view, and we're going to call this get member. We'll pass in request here. And let's go ahead and start this process up. So we'll go ahead and get the UID, and this is going to be a get request. So we're going to do request.get, and we're going to get the UID value. So This is the most important part. We want to make sure that we get the user's UID, and we also want to get the room name. So we're going to query the get request twice, and we'll just do room underscore name, and this will be room name. We'll throw it in like that from the get parameters here, and then we want to go ahead and just query the member here. So we'll just do member, and this is now going to be room member, so we don't need to do the get or create method here. Room member dot objects dot get, and we want to get this room member by the two values. So UID, again, this should make it unique to that specific room, and then the room name, because we don't know the room number at this point. So let's go ahead and get that, or we don't know the room member's name here. So we want to be able to query that room member and then get the name value. So we'll just do name is equal to member dot name. Let's get that value, and then we return back a JSON response. So we'll do return JSON response, and at this point we'll just throw in the name value. So we'll do name, and this is going to be member dot name. Okay, so we'll also set save to false, and there we go. Okay, so this method is sort of self-explanatory. We're just going ahead and getting the parameters from the get request, querying the member, and then returning back that name, because the UID and the room name is the only values we know until we make this request. So we'll go ahead and copy this value here, and let's just go ahead and paste it below. And it looks like I didn't copy the P there, and we'll just call this one get member. So get member, and then we'll call get member here. Okay, so now we have an endpoint to actually get this member. So let's go ahead and test this out. So let's close out a few of these. So I'm going to close out room.html. We can also close out the model, the admin panel, and the lobby, and the CSS file. We don't need that. So inside of streams.js, just like we called this get member method here, or create member method, let's go ahead and create another function to get the member. So we're going to go ahead and create this underneath. We'll do let get member, and let's go ahead and make this another async function. Start building this out. Okay, so in this section, let's go ahead and get the response here. So all we're going to do is set response to equal await. Type in too fast and then I start messing up here. So we're going to call fetch here, and we're going to call fetch, and we're sending this to get underscore member, and we're using backticks because we have to pass in some dynamic values. And at this point, we're going to go ahead and pass in UID, and in the back end, we're going to get that in all caps. So let's make sure to set it that way, because that does actually matter here. So we're going to do UID is going to be equal to user.id. So user.uid. And we're going to pass in the user object in here. So make sure to set that. That's how we're getting that user UID. Now, after that, we're just going to go ahead and pass in another parameter, and this is going to be room underscore name. And let's go ahead and set this value also. So we have the UID and the room name. So once we have that, let's go ahead and let's see. I think I can just get that by the channel value. So if a user is already in the room, we already know what that is. So that's going to be channel from the session. Now we want to get that data. So we'll do data. This is going to be await, and then we'll just do response.json. Okay, so we have that response here, and let's go ahead and actually call this function. So we want to return back this member, and in this case, instead of calling it data, we'll just call that member. So we'll return that, and we'll return the member object. So we called await. It's an async function. Looks like it's all good. And let's go to the join method here. So let's see. Handle user join at the top. So handle user join, this is where we're going to call it. So when we start building this video player out for the remote user, we're going to call this right before we actually complete that player. So we're just going to go ahead and create a variable. This is going to be called member, and we're going to do await now. So I forgot to do this last time. Make sure you set await, and let's go ahead and call that function. Let's pass in the user object. So that's how we have access to the ID, or the UID here. So down here, we got user.uid because we passed that in as a parameter. And up here, let's see. So we call the function, we get back the member, and now all I have to do is change this value for remote users to member.name. So member.name. Okay, and is that how I returned it? So yes, I returned back the member name. That looks good. And let's go ahead and test this out here. So I'm going to go back to my admin panel. Let's go ahead and just delete all the members again until we actually add in that delete method that I'm about to use. I want to make sure that it's all cleared. Okay, so we're going to join new year. I'll join as Dennis. Okay, I see my name. That looks good. We'll join in incognito mode and we'll go to the lobby. Actually, if I go to the room directly, it's going to redirect me back here because of that error handler that I built in. So that's why I added that originally. So we'll do new year and we'll just throw in Eric again. Let's stick with that. Okay, we're going to allow everything. Let's mute the mics so there's no feedback here. And check this out. So now Dennis has Eric's information and Eric has Dennis's information. So basically what's happening is we're creating that member, and then when the other user joins, we just use that room name and the UID, which we do have access to, and we pass that along. It wouldn't really make sense to throw in UIDs in this section right here. That's why we want that string value. Again, there's different ways to do this. Something like an in-memory database like Redis would probably be better for this, but this really helps you get that point across and understand how this flow works. Now, if I go back here, inside of my admin panel, I'm going to see both members here. Now, when a member leaves, I want this member deleted from the database. Otherwise, we're just going to be storing a bunch of information we don't want to store. And if later on we happen to have a room with a user that has a UID that's been used before, that could cause errors with the names. So we just want to go ahead and fix that up right now. So let's go ahead and actually add in one final method here. And I'm going to close out these tabs right here. So this is the one in incognito. I'll also leave the stream, close that out, and let's build this in here. So inside of our views, we're going to throw in one last method. This is going to be taking in a post request here, and this is going to be called delete member. So we didn't have to add in CSRF exempt here because there was no post request, but we're going to have to do this for the next one. Okay, so let's copy this create member method actually, and let's paste this underneath get member. So we'll paste this in here. And we're going to change this to delete. So delete member. And let's see. So we still want to get the data. So delete member JSON.loads. We get the data. And in this case, or at this point, let's go ahead and copy and paste this part. So we just want to query the database for the room member here. Now, we're also going to go ahead and just get this information. So we're going to get that UID. So we'll just do data. And we're going to send the UID in a post request here. So we'll take that name, then we'll take in data right here, and we'll pass in the room name. So room underscore name. Okay, and we can also get the user name. So I just realized this should be UID like that, and this one should be name. So we'll do name and UID. So name, UID, room name. Now, once we get this information, let's just do member.delete. And that's it. So at this point, we can just return back a string and we'll just say member was deleted. All right, so now we have the view to delete a member. So let's go ahead and go back to our URLs. Let's grab all of this and let's just do delete member. We'll update this part right here, set that, save it, and let's create the actual method for this. So down here we have create, delete, or create and get, and now we want to go ahead and throw in delete here. Now, because delete is also going to be a post request, let's get this create member method here. Let's just update a few things here. So we'll do delete, and we're sending this to delete right here. So we're sending a post request, the headers, that all looks good for the content type, and we're going to send the name, the room, and the UID, so that all looks the same. And at this point, we don't really have to return anything here, so let's just go ahead and, I guess, remove the return method. And let's go ahead and call this method. So when do we want to call this method? So at this point, we can just go ahead and call this anytime a user leaves or just closes their window. So the first part, or the first area where I'm going to call this, is going to be inside of the leave and remove local stream. So whenever we leave, we're going to go ahead and delete the member before we actually redirect a user. So we'll bring that up right here, and we're just going to call delete member. So let's test this out here. So we'll go back into the database. I'm going to delete both members right now. Again, I don't want to have any errors until this method is working. So if I refresh it, I have no members. We'll do new, year, Dennis, and I'm in the stream now. Now, if I go ahead and refresh this, I see Dennis. If I leave the stream, if I refresh it, Dennis is now deleted. So that function is now working. So we also want to make sure that this function works though, anytime a user just closes their browser. So right now, if I try to join new year like this, and we'll join as Dennis, join the stream. So it's added, but what about when we just happen to close this window here? That's not going to delete it because we never called that leave method. We just closed our browser. So we want to fix this. So let's go ahead and manually delete this member. And we're going to call that function in one more section here. So we'll go down here, and at the very bottom of the page here, we want to add an event listener for whenever the window actually closes. So we'll go ahead and add this above. Actually, let's add this next to all these other event listeners. So we're just going to call window dot add event listener. So we're adding an event listener to the entire window. And then we're just going to call before unload. So basically before we close out or unload the window, so we load it and unload it, we're just going to call delete member. And there we go. So let's go ahead and try this out. We're going to join a stream here. Let's see, I'll open up a new tab. We'll do new, year, and Dennis here. Okay, so we're in here, and I'll see this member added. Now if I close this out and refresh it, there we go. So that unload method was called, and everything looks good here. So that's it for this project. All the functionality is done with this. You can deploy this if you want. There's other videos that I have on my channel that talk about this. I also have a full Django course, so check those out. And also keep an eye out for my future video where I build this out with WebRTC. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and are proud of this awesome project that you have, and definitely try to show it off with your friends, because I think it's pretty cool to be able to send them a link and show them a chat application that you built out. So good luck, and thank you for watching.